event as well. Lockie, 6 kilometers this racetrack in length, 42 laps I believe we're actually going to be doing, so 250 kilometers. What are we expecting in terms of things? We've got obviously 2 pit stops to get out of the way. What's the discussion from pit lane?
Yeah, very similar race format to what we had last year, so a couple of compulsory pit stops now. When you look at the total amount of fuel that the cars can carry, which is 111 litres, and you compare that with the amount of fuel that the drivers will be required to get through the race in terms of a total amount of fuel, it's just under 200 litres. So there is actually a fair bit of flexibility as to when you take those fuel stops. But when you think about tyre conservation or tyre degradation as well, and the fact that you'll be able to save some fuel during the race, it'll be interesting to see how the different strategies play out. I'll talk more about the specific numbers once we get going. But basically, as we have a bit of a look at our strategy graph, theoretically you could actually pit as early as the end of the first lap, and still be able to make it home quite comfortably from there. We don't expect many of the teams to do that, of course, because it is suboptimal in terms of splitting the wear across your 3 sets of tyres. But basically, lap number 19 is the earliest that you can pit for your final pit stop and make it home without any fuel concerns. So, based on what we saw last year throughout most of the rounds, if you're up the front of the field and you've got clear track, generally you'll leave your stop as late as possible so that you don't come back out in traffic. If you're a bit further down the field, you might decide to stop a bit earlier and aim for an undercut. So it'll be interesting tonight to see how all of that plays out. Before we get into the race though, of course, we'll be doing qualifying because grid position and early track position is going to be vital in determining how you play your strategy over the course of the evening.
Sandman, I want to lean on your experience a little bit here, because now you've been here twice as a part of this series. That run down to turn number 1, let's skip forward from qualifying, because I know there will be a couple guys who are already thinking about that first run down to turn 1. It's a little bit wide on the way in, then it narrows up. Is that potentially going to set some fates alight? Are we going to see a couple of series disappear at the end of turn 1? Are we going to see a couple guys that all of a sudden peep their nose through the shadows and they've survived?
It's always a huge talking point, especially when you come here to Sebring. But you'd like to think, now I say like to think, but it's easier said than done when the red mist falls over the drivers when the green flag drops. But you'd like to think being round 1 that everyone gives each other just that little bit of space, because they know how crucial it is, obviously, to get through turn 1. But the last thing you need to do is make things difficult for you for the first race of the season. So at the end of the day, hopefully everyone keeps smart about it. But you're right, you can see on the vision now how wide that entry is. You've got so many different lines that you can hit as far as taking that apex. But yes, it narrows up so much on exit, so they do need to be mindful of that, because where it starts to narrow up, you've only got grass on either side, so you really have to be mindful of your car positioning and who you've got around you. So let's say, fingers crossed, they're all clean into turn 1.
I'm just already thinking of that first moment we get to say 4 wide on the run into turn number 1. Wetting my lips, getting a little bit excited about that. We're about 2 minutes away, ladies and gentlemen, from kicking over to the first qualifying for 2024. Lockie, have you spoken to anyone up and down pit lane? How are the nerves? Have you sort of got an opportunity to gauge the attitude just a little bit?
Couple of messages exchanged with a couple of the drivers during the week, and I think probably one of the key themes to come out of the way that everybody's approaching tonight is that you can't win the championship in the first round, but you can certainly do your title hopes a lot of harm, and we've seen that in the last 2 years. If you go back to 2022, Madison Down had a blackout, wasn't able to compete in the opening round, and while he fought back gallantly for the rest of the season, ultimately that points deficit that he lost to Jared Filsell was just too great to be able to overcome. And then if you look to last year with Jared Filsell, reigning champion, had a fraught evening here at Sebring in this corresponding event last year, and you'd have to say that he never recovered from there on in. So while obviously, winning is nice, it's not going to be the be-all and end-all. If you have a bad round, you will leave you playing catch-up for the rest of the season.
One final topic with about a minute left until qualifying I would like to touch on, boys, before we jump into things. Teams Championship. It's brand spanking new for 2024. This is probably going to be one of the graphics I think we'll cut to here in just a moment, just sort of split it up. But the discussion is 2 drivers to a team. So this is Trans-Tasman Team Racing number 1. It's Madison Down, and he's opted for his teammate. He's gone with Jake Burton. It would have been the easy decision to go with perhaps Brady Myers. Jake's been a little bit inconsistent, but Jake's always there in terms of speed. How do you rate this team, Sandman?
A little bit biased myself, as I have a little bit of maybe my left toe into Trans-Tasman racing, but I like the mindset of what Madison's down. He's just split. Obviously, we know that TTR is a good, talented mob, so what he's done is just split that up a little bit. So the chance of not just having one team as TTR up the front, he's got a chance for his other drivers as part of that team to get into the fold as well. So I think it was a good move.
All right, Speed Cafe Lobs Esports number 1, and we'll cut to the other team in the other discussion. Sorry, the other name for the other half of this team as well will be Ryko Speed Cafe. So this team called Speed Cafe Ryko. This one is going to be James Scott and Jared Philsill, and from that outfit, you'd put your finger on it and go, this is probably the best 2 drivers that they've got to put together.
It's frighteningly strong, isn't it? You saw that the season that James had last year was incredible. We know about Jared's talent. He had an off year, but was very dominant through season 1. Massively strong, didn't lose a round for the qualifying series. So, yeah, an absolute weapon of a team when you look at that driving lineup.
Yeah, and we'll have to put a pin in that one, because I can tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, qualifying for 2024. We've been through the qualifying series. Now it's the main game in terms of qualifying. And I tell you what, Sandman, the excitement in the room is palpable. Who's going to jump out of line? Who's already looking to play the team game? And it started before we've got very far from the end of pit lane.
Yeah, we see, normally you can see there's a couple of drivers just getting out of that single file, but someone's very keen to get this season started. But this is always the most exciting part for me. Round 1 of a championship. It's a long year ahead. There's plenty of rounds. This is obviously the first stepping stone of putting everything together right. You want to make qualifying as best as you can. You start making it difficult for yourself, then that's when the pressure starts to mount. And if you can take all that pressure off yourself in round 1, then obviously you start to breathe easy going into round 2.
Really, really interesting. Scott Gamble's going to be the guy who's going to be at the head of the queue, and it's Bo Albert who's going to be following him along. So there's 4 cars sort of jumping away just a fraction at the front end of field. They wanted some fresh air on their nose, and they want an opportunity to set a lap. This place, it's narrow, it's tough, it's tricky. The cars bounce around. It is very, very easy to make a mistake. Sometimes you just want to be the clear air. Look, he's going to take a bit of punishment, pushing that air through, but he's getting the opportunity to set his lap, and I think that's the key.
Yeah, I like what he's doing. They're getting themselves a little bit of gap. I guess what you don't want to do is get too much of a gap if the rest of the field is starting to drop back, because then you start coming across lap traffic, and that's where it starts to make it difficult. I think they're lucky enough that there's enough length in this racetrack, but we can already sort of see on the map where they are at the moment, and they've got themselves a nice little margin over the rest of the field. So as long as they're mindful of that and smart before they hit the start-finish line, I think it'll be a nice little gap and nice little gamble for them for that clear air.
The field's starting to spread out just a little bit now. They're not quite as boxed up as they were, but as it currently stands, if he puts the lap together, he'll be P1 for all of a second until Bo Albert crosses the line. But hey, that fills you with confidence. I can recall Carlos Sainz, I think it was from Monza. You're P1, Carlos? How many cars have done a qualifying lap? Just you. Well, tell me on P1 then.
I'd take it anyway. As long as you hit P1, you'll take it.
Qualifying for 2024 to the green flag, Scott Gamble will start the season. He will be the first one to lay down a lap. At the back end of the queue, at the other end of the queue, some of the rookies are down there. Connor Nixon is going to be one of the last guys who will set his first lap from the Vermilion Esports team. A new team to the series. They've only put a V8 supercar platform together here and say, ooh, the last 12 months or so, but boy, have they popped out of the water and just all of a sudden arrived on the scene.
Just watching position there and exit there for Scott. That's actually a nice little line there. So it's really going to be interesting to see sort of what time that produces, because it looked quite easy. Sometimes the slow, smooth parts of doing a lap are sometimes the fastest, but it looks pretty good at the moment.
Yep, so it'll be tidy. Perhaps this might even be Banker, a little bit of an oversteer at the snap in the middle of the corner as he tries to get the power down off the turn 7 hairpin. The run onto the middle straight of the lap as he'll set himself up. Cunningham's the next right-hander as they get down here. Just after the 3 cone, he'll jump on the anchors, get the car tipped all the way back in to the right. And don't forget as well, for any of those drivers having an off night, well, the no escape rules now in effect. There will be no drivers jumping out of their cars. If they mess it up, they hit the barrier. It's a long, long way back around to that pit lane.
One thing that you'll get sick of us talking about throughout the year is getting that banker, and you touched on it a little bit there, but It's so crucial. I used to kick myself as a driver just not getting a banker in because, you know, that can sort of set the tempo for that qualifying session. You start to put more pressure on yourself. That's when you start making mistakes because you're cautious of how much time's left on that clock and you know you haven't put something down. But so far, so good. Looks like everyone has been fairly smooth at this stage and, you know, it's about ticking off that banker and I think so far, so good.
Yeah, I reckon something's happened to Bo Albert on this lap because he's all of a sudden jumped out of the queue, dropped 2 spots and dropped away. So it'll be Matthew Bowler who'll now be the second driver in this queue that'll pop through. But in the meantime, all eyes on the driver of the 5-4-3. Scott Gamble, the run to the flag. What's it going to be to set the timing charts alight? Who's going to be the first driver that dips underneath that 2-minute lap time? Track temp 39 degrees Celsius. It's going to be a 2-minute 7:36. Bowler will pip him by 2/10. And we've got our first little battle pack up and away. And now they're going to start coming through thick and fast. There's a huge pack coming out of the last corner on their way under the line. You're watching the big old run down the back straight. Jake Burton, Brady Myers just a fraction ahead of him, and Dylan O'Shea pops out and all of a sudden grabs the pole position. Madison down. Who could forget about him? Your reigning champion jumps to the top of the pile. Greek Galt goes to 3rd. Rivera jumps into 4th. Gilliam 5th. Bowlers slid all the way down to 6th. Here we go. Forza El Nami, his return to the series. This time for himself, no longer a co-driver. What's he going to be capable of? Myers goes to 2nd place as well. Griffin Gardner's now in the mix, jumps to 2nd place. The bulk of the first round of laps are now complete, and that is the order on the bankers there. There's a few drivers who'll be a little bit of question mark over them. I'm not seeing any Lobs drivers a number of the way up there, and that's Bo Albert on his out lap, trying to get out of the way of the field, and they're in lap.
Yeah, that's the tricky part, isn't it? When you're out of sequence, when the field come through, obviously he's now rejoined and have another crack, but James Scott hasn't been able to put down a time. He's obviously sacrificed and gone straight in to put on a new set of tyres. So it was interesting, that gap when Madison crossed the line, he had sort of 3, nearly 4 tenths on the rest of the field. And then as soon as the other drivers had managed to get their laps down, you just see that margin just picking away at it. And they did a really good job. Griffin Gardner in P2, Brady Myers P3. Really good run for first lap for those guys.
Righto, so now this changes a few different things. Lockie, anyone that you've sort of got half an eye on that jumped out and didn't set a lap here? We've got the rookie Brady Baldwin who's just popping back out of pit lane for Synergy Sim Racing.
So, yeah, I think what you said in regards to Bo Albert having some issues on his initial lap were correct because he aborted that lap and came back into the pits. Like you said, there's the no escape rule that's in play tonight. So if you do make a mistake, you can't escape back to the pits. So if you do have a lap that you realise is suboptimal, the best thing to do is to bail out of it, get back to the pits, get another set of tyres and go again. It's such a long lap here that there's not going to be a huge amount of time to have a lot of runs at this. So you really have to try and make every run count if you can.
Righto. Well, Bo Albert's going to be in a really, really awkward spot at this point in time because he's trying to build. Actually, he might have bought this next lap as well because he's put some heat through those tyres. First replay of the season coming our way as well, and this will be what happened to Bo Albert's lap on the way down through Le Mans, and a couple of corners right beforehand, got a little bit of an end swap coming through and decided to abort that lap nice and early. Everyone just about back in a pit lane at the moment. You can see Bo Albert trying to wind up and get that run out of the final corner to the flag. This will start his lap number 2. No lap in the books, so this one's got to be a good one. We're already 7.5 minutes through the qualifying session as well. About 12.5 left to go, so this will be really, really important. If he can't get this lap in the books, Sandman, he's only really going to have time for maybe one solid more lap, and there's nearly off and into the grass. I think he's got away with that one. I think the lap will still count, but it's scrappy early from what is such an experienced campaigner.
And this is where the nerves start to creep in. We touch about how crucial it is. Well, you can see how much attitude's in that car. He's holding on to it. Don't think there was enough there for a 1X, especially the other turn there. But we touched on it, is that when that pressure starts to build and you put that on yourself because you haven't got that banker in. So he now knows that it's crucial to get this lap down. And just these couple little mistakes, there was a bit of a lock tyre there too, I think, just coming into that section. So what he needs to do is just calm himself down, put something down, and then worry about his times later on.
I reckon that might have been the downshift all the way back to first gear where the rear end just slightly got away from him. So anyway, for the meantime, Bo Albert's this might have to be his banker. If this is a banker, he gets the time on the board. I talked to him quite a few times after that first round of qualifying series. Remember all the way back at Road Atlanta to make his way into this series, he really, really struggled in qualifying then. I guarantee you he will be very, very anxious not to repeat that performance. And with a man with so much talent, like we said, 2 pro racing licenses, one of them for Porsche Super Cup and one of them for the Rallycross series as well. He's a man with a supreme amount of talent, a man with supreme amounts of capabilities. I think sometimes that just puts an extra level of pressure on yourself. You say, I'm capable of these sorts of things.
And the scary bit is, for everyone who's ever driven one of these cars, they're a different beast to drive when you start thinking about everything else that we've got through the iRacing service. The V8 is very tricky to drive, and at the moment he's definitely got his head around it. But yeah, I guess when you start getting used to a different driving style, it is sort of something to change your mindset and go racing. But it'll be interesting to see, watch as he crosses the line for a time. 2-minute flat 0.9.
25th he pops out in. It's a lap on the board. It's something that he's put together, and we're watching James Scott. And I tell you what, Scott was 4/10 up on him in that middle sector. So if this is good enough for 25th for him, well, all of a sudden, James Scott is going to pop out maybe a 2.4, which would put him inside the 10. We expect that from James Scott. Maybe he's going to find a little bit more time. Is he going to pop it all the way back up at the top end of the tree for the 0.88? Where's he land? It is inside the 10. It is inside the top 3. So a successful second outing on that flying lap there for James Scott. I think a number of drivers around him he'll now have to just come completely out of the way of as they're starting their next time laps. Jake Maloney, I think, is going to be one of those. No, Maloney was on a flyer. It will be a 2:01.121. So outside the 30 for Jake Maloney, but it's a lap on the board. That's that banker. Now you can push a little bit. Now that settles the nerves, calms you down just a fraction on qualifying night for round 1.
It was good heads-up driver, because obviously he made a mistake on that first lap. He pitted straight away, didn't finish that first lap, put tyres on, and now he's got himself, like you said, that's an important banker, and to beat P3, it's definitely a weight off his shoulders.
What's the story with Jared Filsell, guys? Because he is yet to bank a lap time at all. He's currently scored down in position 48. He's actually behind our race directors. That's how far back he is. And I'm not seeing him out on the circuit at the moment, so that's something that we'll need to follow up. He needs to get a move on here. There's now less than 4 minutes remaining in the session.
I'm hearing his rear grid penalty, by the way. So, I think it's for offences back at Road America as well. And quite crucially, I think how's that for a little bit of justice? He's behind the stewards as well.
Okay, yes. So just clarifying, so that's actually a carryover penalty from last season. Oh, well, that's going to be exciting, watching Jared Filsell, one of the undisputed fastest drivers in this category, charging through from the back of the field. That'll certainly give us some entertainment tonight, that's for sure.
Well, qualifying now starting to settle in. Ethan Greig got qualified inside at the top 10 on that first attempt. Is he going to improve on lap number 2? More drivers abandoning their second lap. Runs it all the way to the left-hand side of the straight. Shortens it up. A nice sharp shoot to the finish line. Get that flag. And then what's the lap going to be? 2-minute 1:41. So Greig Gold pops out of 7th spot. Jumps all the way up to 3rd. And crucially, ahead of James Scott. That's a big improvement for him. And he'll be looking to really capitalise on that one, Sandman.
Yeah, that was a really good lap there. And how much real estate did he use up on exit too? We were riding on board and you could see just how crucial it is just to carry that speed, run the car out as wide as he could, just so he didn't scrub that time off, and he did a really good job running to the line.
Golden ticket holder Michael Taliancic qualified his way into this series, not through the qualifying series, would have just about pointed his way in through that one as well, but got a golden ticket from the V8 Veterans Series, the series only eligible to the drivers above 40 years of age. Win that series running over the Christmas break period, qualified his way in. And unfortunately, at the expense of Ken Latta, who won't be with us. It was a credible battle to burst his way onto the scene. Went down to the very, very last lap of that championship. Oh, well, Taliancic is in. And outside the 30 at the moment, really looking to improve. How about some of the familiar drivers as we sort of cast an eye up and down the field? One of the drivers I really want to keep an eye on was Jacob O'Reilly, and then the other one was Zach Rattray White. New drivers, and we just saw a host of talent coming out of Jacob O'Reilly. Was very, very quick when you cast our eyes all the way back to Magny Corsan, man, in that series.
And you look at his time that he's put on the board so far, that's credible. We know the amount of talent that we've got in this series. So to be just about midfield, that's not a bad starting point for him.
And crucially as well, on a track where all of his competitors around at the moment have done 2 years worth of Logitech level racing. So they know, everyone here knows what they're capable of. And I tell you what, qualifying is getting exciting. And do you guys like Formula One qualifying at home? Because I can tell you right now, there's about a 7 or 8 car battle pack. Actually, it might be a few more than that on their way down through turn 13, Tower at this point in time. Everyone vying for a little bit of space. James Scott's in it, Hampstead, O'Shea, Forza El Nabi, and now it becomes the track position games, boys. It's on for young and old, and we're not in the race yet.
That's it. And it's the first qualifying of the season, and these guys would be definitely nervous as they know where the time's at. They know that they really need to get that happening now. And there's a couple of notices that just come out of pit lane. Are they going to have enough time? Yeah, it looks like, what have we got? 38 seconds. So a lot of this mob are going to make it back in time to cross the start-finish line. But that's when it starts to get nervy, when you look at the clock and you find your position on the track, just to make sure that you get round to start that last crucial lap.
I'll tell you what, someone just went barreling down the inside on the run into the last corner. It'll be Jamie Johnson. I wonder whether or not he might actually be on a flying lap. As it currently stands, Rick Kuznetsov's going to jump out of the last corner. So 15 seconds as it stands. Anyone in the last half of the lap is going to get an opportunity to set their final lap. There'll be a few drivers who'll miss out. Look at the timer in the top left-hand corner of the screen. It is going to run out. 4, 3, 2, 1. And that will be it. Anyone who crosses the start-finish line now completes the lap that they're on and will not get another. Madison Down currently sits on pole position. Sebastian Flock will get the lap that he was on in, but that will be it. There'll be no more laps available to him. There's a host of cars in that first sector, though, so this qualifying effort is going to go supremely deep. We're not going to know for another about a minute and 45 seconds or so who is going to put this car on pole position. Is it going to be an improvement, though, for Madison Down? Where's Rick Kuznetsov stand in this one? One of the Altus Esports Australia cars bails out, gets out of everyone's way. And qualifying thus far, well, it's been a little bit argy-bargy in terms of getting that track position, but the laps themselves have been good. Everyone's been quite clean for this first attempt this season, Sandman.
Yeah, just watching Madison Down on screen, he's got traffic in front of him, so that may cause him a little bit of grief because, yeah, he's carrying that speed. The car got sideways, and I'll say he was catching that traffic. Maybe that distracted him a little bit, but that's lap over for him.
Yeah, Dylan Rudd will come on through just in behind him. Dylan O'Shea, who is one of the younger drivers in the field, who was a really, really strong performance last year from Sandown. Everyone trying to get their power down. Tom Free is the car at the head of this queue. James Scott, Dylan O'Shea, Dylan Rudd, Andrew Gilliam, Brady Myers, all in this queue. Well, I get the feeling Gilliam might have already aborted his lap as well, so there'll be a few drivers on their hunt through. Myers is quick. He's in 5th at the moment. We'll see if he can improve on this lap as it currently stands. Scott looks to be improving on this current lap. He's, 7.5 tenths up as it currently stands. Free is on the lights because Jordan Ross is right ahead of him. Gives him a huge tow. The last moments of qualifying for round number 1. The run down to the final corner. Is it going to count? Dylan O'Shea's bailed out of his lap. Rudd is going to continue on. So there's a few drivers already aborting their time laps, trying to get out of everyone's way. Who's going to have some time to put it down there? Everyone is on the limit as they come to the line. Is it going to be good enough? James Scott, the questions will be asked. The questions will be answered to the top of the tree. The only driver into the 1 minute 59s. It's a 9.92. He grabs pole position. Down improves, but not enough. James Scott is going to get the first pole position of the season, and that is a statement, Sandman. A statement from Sebring, a statement for round number 1.
That's it. That was really good, and that's what hurt Madison Down. We saw that he was on that hot lap, got caught up in a little bit of traffic. Don't know if that was the cause that ruined his lap for him. The car did get away from him. Maybe he was slightly distracted. Didn't get a chance to have a go at that last lap, and well done to James. He really, really nailed it there. And check out the margin between the top two. Absolutely nothing in it. Well done, James Scott.
Wow, the only driver in the field to jump into the 1 minute 59 seconds. He got a couple bankers in, got a couple of laps to warm himself up to it. And how about that tow? I reckon that tow was definitely worth a couple of tenths a second on that lap. The rest of that, all raw talent. Speed Cafe, the new sponsors on the side of the car. Well, I reckon they'll be happy with that effort.
Yeah, absolutely, and a nice shiny white livery too, something different that we've seen obviously off the car from the qualifying series of Jared Fieldcell. So, but what a qualifying series. How good was that? The first one, round number 1 is under our belt, and there's absolutely nothing between James Scott and Madison Down.
Yeah, it's going to kick off things from the front row of the field. Lobs Esports off alongside of Trans-Tasman Racing. They're rivals and have been for a number of seasons. We'll get to see that again. Guess what? It's another Trans-Tasman car off alongside of another Lobs Esports car on row number 2. Brady Myers off alongside of Dylan Rudd for 3rd and 4th on the grid. We'll move it one row further back. It's going to be Griffin Gardner, who was supremely quick in the qualifying series, wanted to be back out here, had a few dodgy rounds last year. It's going to be off alongside of Ethan Greig-Gault. His late lap, not able to improve. Did improve up to 3rd, but slid down to 6th. Now it's going to be all the way back to Jake Burton and Forzen El Nabi. Forzen really keen to put his head forward, is the leader of the Synergy Sim Racing cars. How well are they going to do tonight? Well, you're going to have to find out on the other side of 250 kilometres. Richard Hampstead and Andrew Gilliam make their way inside the top 10. That's going to round out the first top 10 of the season. On the outside looking in, Sandman, it's going to be Rosella and Dylan O'Shea.
Yeah, Luke Rosella, Dylan O'Shea, they know that they were just in touch there with that group, that top 10. Not a bad starting position for these guys for round number 1. Looking good on the grid there. Nothing in it between these guys. We look back to Matthew Bowler in 12th. Bo Albert, who was able to bounce back, still holds on to 14th position, although we saw him in a spot of bother, not having that banker, but he managed to get that down. P14, he'll start for round number 1. We go back to Marcelo Rivera in 15th and Sean McNamara in 16th. These guys aren't too disappointed with where they're at the moment, not too far from the rest of the field. Then we go back to Robert Gibbs and Tom Freer in 17th and 18th position. Into 19th and 20th, Jake Maloney, and then another TTR, it's an all-TTR row there of Josh Anderson back in 20th position.
Yep, we're going to look fraction outside of the 20 now, and it's going to be all the way back to Wayne Burke off alongside of Job Stewart. Have a look at the times, though. 5/10 of a second, 5.5 tenths of a second covered our top 20, and we're only just outside of it. It was 3 thousandths of a second between 21st and 22nd. Jordan Ross and Scott Gamble, we were on board with Gamble for the first half of that qualifying. We'll start in the front half of the field-ish, just on the outside of that. You'll look to get inside the 20. Sebastian Flock and Jacob O'Reilly, we talked about Vermilion Sim Sports. That'll be some place to keep our eyes throughout the night. Adam Briggs was talking to him before the season. He was keen to get underway, didn't like a long-term holiday, wants to be back behind the steering wheel, will be so tonight. Rick Kuznetsov off alongside of him. 29th and 30th is going to be Hayden Veld and Blake Warboys, and I tell you what, that is a very competitive 38 tenths of a second, covers the top 30 cars. That's mental, Sandman.
It's pretty impressive. The further you go down through the grid, regardless of where these guys are, it's round number 1. They're actually in the series for the season. Teo in 31st and Ian Ford in 32nd. So these boys won't be too disheartened. Obviously, you're not over the moon, but at the end of the day, they're on the grid. Connor Nixon in 33rd. In 34th, it's Zach. And these guys, regardless of what happens, they need to be careful going into turn number 1 because of the amount of cars that's in front of them. Damien Johnston in 35th. In 36th is Michael Taliancic. So these guys, again, all being very careful. Michael Whiting, Brian Borg in 38th. And rounding out the rest of the field here, Brenton Hobson, 39th. That's a bit of a surprise. I'm not expecting to see Hobbo so far back. 1.2 seconds off the pace. And Kurt Stenberg as well. He's a little bit off it, back in 40th position.
Well, as they're going to continue scrolling on past your screen, we're going to chat to a few of our drivers as part of our grid walk, and one of those drivers we're going to be talking about is the man on pole position. I tell you what, James Scott, we were sitting there, we were watching all of that lap. It was filled with traffic, but it also had a massive tow. You got yourself settled, you got yourself sorted. It's the first pole position of the season, mate. How's it feeling?
Yeah, good, mate. Good to be back. Obviously, long time off from the last race last year, but yeah, the lap, obviously I got held up a little bit on the first run, so I knew I really had to make the most of the last 2 runs. Yeah, the banker I got down in the middle of the session, it was okay, but wasn't amazing. And then even still the last lap wasn't all that great. So I picked up a little bit of a tow, but I was looking at some other laps and they were getting a fair bit more. So yeah, car feels alright, but we'll see what happens in the race.
Mate, do you think you can stick it together? Is the win what's on the cards for tonight, or are you just being a little bit conservative, make sure we bank a ton of points from round 1?
Win's always the goal. If you start thinking about the championship or anything like that in round 1, or even before the Enduros, you're probably thinking about it a bit too early. So yeah, no, just try and bank as many points as I can, and yeah, go for the win. But if you don't have the car speed, then you just got to try and make the most of a bad day. So we'll see where we are in the first few laps, and see where we want to end up at the end.
Mate, good luck, and we'll see you on the other side. Might be talking to you post the end of that stream. Good luck tonight.
Thank you.
Sandman's sitting alongside of Madison Down to kick off the outside of row number 1.
Madison, well done. P2, not the end of the world, but looks like you were just things didn't quite go right on that last lap to have a crack for the last lap. What happened? Was it a little bit of traffic? Was it just a little mistake? What happened?
Yeah, 100%. Just a little bit of a mistake there. Nailed it. Obviously, the track was getting better each lap, and we could see that. So I was pretty dirty at myself to throw that one away. Had a bit of a woulda, shoulda, coulda moment. The lap was looking good, but yeah, just locked a tyre and couldn't get it unlocked. And when you're at this level, I guess you tiny little mistake and you're off the road.
The beauty about it, and we touch about it every week as far as qualifying goes, is about getting that banker. Your banker was an absolute scorcher, put you there top of the timesheets, and you had some margin on the rest of the field. So, and it wasn't for James Scott having that cracker of a lap at the end, you would have held on, and there was nothing in it between you two. And it's exactly what you touched on too. The level of drivers and skill in this field is something not to be sneezed at.
Yeah, 100%. It's an awesome series to be a part of, and it keeps getting more and more competitive each year. And obviously, you know, driving around this year with the number one, I want to try to match what I did last year here and get the season off to a good start. And yeah, a bit disappointing to not get pole, but front row is still a really good effort. So confident we can race well. Pace is good, like you said. Banker was solid. So yeah, I think we've got a good race car.
Before we let you go, how are the nerves sitting on the grid now? Reigning champion, round number one of a brand new season. So much can play out throughout the year. How are the nerves?
They're always there. I'm one of the most nervous guys, I reckon, on the grid with anything I do. So I guess you're nervous when it means a lot, and this definitely means a lot. So yeah, definitely keen to try and go back to back and keep that number one on the window.
All the best, mate. We'll let you buckle in and get ready for the big one. But have a great race, mate. Hopefully we'll talk to you at the end of the night.
Thanks, guys. Have a good call.
Thanks, buddy. Scott, have you wandered down a little bit further? Who else have you got there?
Yeah, going to be chatting to Sean McNamara, team boss over at 95 Sim Sports, mate. Look, you're back on the grid. You're feeling a little bit confident, and 16th for race number one, mate. How you feeling with that position?
Not too bad. Only got one lap in, so we'll take that. It's a good way to start the season off. So a couple of boys up ahead as well. So yeah, look, not too bad. Long race to go though.
In terms of things, how's the vibe across the team? I think that's probably the better one, because I know you've been putting so much work into supporting all of your guys.
Yeah, tons of it. So yeah, no, the vibe's good. I've got a good doc. Boys are happy. It's been a good off season for some of us. Obviously, some of us had to go through qual series, but yeah, no, the vibe's good, and we're looking forward to a good night.
All right, mate. Running out of time before the start of this one. We'll let you settle in. Good luck. Get the head down.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
In terms of things, Sam, man, I believe you got Tao Serrano from Alta Sea Sports Australia.
Yeah, Tao, just before the lights go out, how are you feeling for round number one?
Yeah, good. I'd obviously a bit down the field, but yeah, it's just good to really be on the grid, so just surviving will be my goal.
I said at the end of the day, regardless of where anyone qualifies, I'd rather be down towards the back of the pack and just making sure that you're part of the circus, because it's a long year and anything can happen.
Yeah, I think around here as well, I'd be pretty surprised if we all make it through lap one.
We talked about that in the broadcast. We'll let you concentrate because there's a lot going to go on. A lot of cars barrel in there. Hopefully you keep it nice and clean, buddy, and we'll talk to you at the end of the night.
Thanks, boys.
There you go, Tao. He's got that view in front of him. You can see from our pictures. He's got a lot of cars there, a lot of ground to make up, and all he'll be doing is obviously thinking about that start and keeping that nose nice and clean.
Well, Lockie, before the lights go out here, is there anyone that jumps out at you? Obviously, we've already talked about Phil Cell. He's got some suspended penalties there. He's going to be from the back, but I think there's somebody else all the way down at the tail end of the field as well that's also serving a penalty.
Yeah, so there is a suspended penalty for Jake Maloney as well, so not actually having to be served in terms of a grid penalty for this race, but a few other drivers to watch out for coming a bit from a bit further back in the field. Watch out, I think, for Brenton Hobson out of 39th and Kurt Stenberg out of 40th. Those cars, you'd have to say, a bit out of position based on the experience and the past form that we've seen from those drivers.
Righto, Lockie, before we let you start crunching some numbers, any pick here tonight that you want to see climb through the field?
Yeah, I think those drivers that I just mentioned, Jake Maloney, 19th as well, Josh Anderson in 20th position. I mean, he was comfortably inside the top 10 in the points last year, so they're drivers that I'd expect to see moving forward. Watch out for Job Stewart as well, because he was pretty impressive in the qualifying series.
Sam, man, anyone before lights out you've got your eyes on, someone to focus on for the night for the viewers?
I'm keen to see how Bo Albert comes through the field. Obviously not where he wanted to qualify, was strong through the qualifying series, and yeah, keen to see where he finishes up tonight.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you it's now time. We are going to get the revs to start to rise. 2024, 12 rounds of the Logitech G Pro Invitational. The run to turn one for the first time this season. They all get a reasonable getaway from up the top half of the series. It's going to be one on the outside. I think it was El Nabi who got a terrible run on the run down to turn number one. They're going to be 3, 4, 5 wide deep in the pack as they tip it all down. It's the airfield. It's the run to turn into one. Who can sail it around the outside? And it's going to be James Scott who kicks us off for 2024 from the front row, converts into that first car through the first corner. They'll try and settle themselves down on and in. Who is already making their way up the field? Maya's got a reasonable getaway. He'll settle into third spot. Rudd has managed to confirm fourth spot. Ethan Greek Gold has managed to grab a spot off the start finish line. Harassing, haranguing. It's going to be to the inside of Dylan Rudd. They make contact on the run down to the turn 7 hairpin. They get to the cones. Who's going to pull it up on the anchors? Rudd's in deep. Rudd cracks the back end of Brady Myers. Greek Gold sails through, nabs himself third spot in the offing, and he'll be supremely happy about lap number one.
Oh, these guys have made me incredibly proud. They've all got through turn number one. They've all got through the first half of the lap. Look at them having a red-hot go. It's a brand new season of the Logitech series, and they're all having a red-hot go. A little bit of nose-to-tail action through, but nothing dangerous. No one's been turned around. Everyone's pointing in the right direction, and they're all within each other's reach.
Well, it's going to be try and settle it through. I talked to Brady Boardman through the week, and he said, all I want to do is tick off every single lap of the season. It's already kicked off. Was that McNamara?
Little bit of contact between two cars. Someone's facing the wrong way. That's a nightmare start. I was praising the guys on their start, but unfortunately someone's come to grief. It's Scott Gamble. So he's rejoined. He's a long way back. Thankfully, it's only lap one.
Now, keep your eyes around the outside for Dylan Rudd. He's going to give a big old whack towards Forza El Nabi. The driver of the 990 is falling back through the field. He's copped another whack. That's the second on lap number one. They don't wait long to trade a bunch of paint, and what we're hearing is a bunch of slowdowns being applied. The run out of Le Mans to the back straight, you can cut it. You can clamber all over the curves down there, but step outside the lines. There's a few drivers are stepping outside the lines right there. Round the outside, Dylan O'Shea trying to get his car hooked up. Get the power to the ground. Lap one, boys, it's in the books, but Sandman, that was not without its own taste of drama.
Yeah, and it's still not over yet. They're all diving in there 3, 4, 5 wide if they can get in there. They all bunch it up nice and clean, but man, people having to get on the brakes and a little bit of tail happiness there, but looks like so far they've been able to give each other a bit of room, but man, it got spicy coming into that last corner. A couple of people had some slowdowns, but look at this. Where do you find the action? You've got to try and put the nose somewhere nice and clean. When the cars are side by side, they're moving around, you're trying the best. Absolutely all over the back bumper. These guys are not giving an inch. They know how crucial it is to start this season off, and they are having a red hot go 3 wide. No way. Thinks better of it. Smart move.
Yeah, Wayne Burke dives down the inside. He'll get to the inside of Job Stewart now. And it was Job Stewart who also tries to cut his way through. I think it was Matt Bowler I might have had my eyes on a little bit further down the field, because Bowler's sort of sitting in there and around things at the moment. In the meantime, Forza El Nabi had a reasonable getaway, starting to slide down the field as it currently stands. Maloney jumps out from 19th on the grid all the way up to 11th. So he's had a bonza opening lap. Dylan Rudd falls through the field. Started off of the second row on the grid, now sits 8th. And Scott Gamble, man, night one of the series, lap one of the series, as a rookie, you want to settle yourself in, and he just couldn't, Sandman.
Go check out the replay here. It's just what's happening. Oh, a little bit of contact there, just as they were merging together, getting ready for the entrance of the corner. Pointed the wrong direction. Thankfully, he didn't hit anything else, so the car's in good condition. But man, oh man, disaster, heartbreak. But the only thing that I can say is thankfully it is lap one. He's got plenty of time to bounce back.
Righto, end of lap number 2, and this is where the strategy starts to play, and the field will settle itself down. Somebody tips out of the way to try and serve a slowdown penalty. It'll be the 990 of Dylan Rudd and the 28 of Richard Hampstead, who go toe-to-toe on their run down into Sunset Corner. They'll bounce their way all across the bumps down here. Keep it on the rubber, keep the tyres underneath you, turn it back at the start-finish line, and away they go to set another lap in the books. We're now 12 kilometres into this race, and boy, oh boy, is it starting to get feisty up at the front end. I tell you what, 3 wide in the first sector on lap 2. I thought it would only happen on lap number 1. Nah, these guys continue to lift that bar.
what's impressive, isn't it? There's so much energy at the start of this race. Everyone knows about the opportunity that's in front of them. You know, we touched on it. I've said it so many times at the start of this broadcast that it's a long season. There's so much that can happen tonight that can make your year so much easier. They're not giving an inch. Oh, a little bit of contact. Oh, he's going to be able to hold off to it. Oh, man, that was very, very tasty. They're still not giving up. Here we are, lap 3, and they're still not giving an inch.
I tell you what, stewards are employing a few new methods this season as well. They've put out the black and white flag between the 22 and 990. So Dylan Rudd has been given the black and white flag for driving standards. It's on the line. That is the line. Any more of that, and you'll be receiving a penalty. Connor Nixon and Brian Borg are going to bang doors as they get down to the turn number 7 hairpin. They'll all sort it out. Borg gets away with one for now. They traded paint back at the start end of the straight, but now they're going to settle themselves down on an end. No, forget that. This is at the tail end of the field, guys. It does not matter where you look up and down this field. There's something to fight for. There is a reason to fight for it, and they're finding every little bit of road to scrap over as well.
And that's what we love about the Logitech series. Like exactly what you said. It doesn't matter if you're up in the first or down in last. There's always a good battle all the way through the grid. And it's so tricky just to make the series. So we know that everyone up and down the field is well worthy of being in the field. And we know that everyone is going to have their work cut out for them. These guys just give it everything they can. As we check out a Logitech G Supercars replay, a dive here. Up on the curbs, very clean, but it's just that nose to tail action there. Got the pump. Lucky not to have the car turned around. Thankfully, just got out of it. And yeah, that could have been a lot worse.
I think that was actually the two teammates. It was Connor Nixon and Zach Rattray White out of the Vermilion Motorsports outfit that were the two cars line astern. They were 3 wide. It was Nixon who gave Borg a big old whack. So that will explain a little bit of that one. And back up at the head of the field, still going to be status quo as it currently stands for the front 3 as they settle themselves down on an end at the moment. Ethan Greig-Galt didn't necessarily get the qualifying performance he'd be happy with, Sandman, but lap 1 worked in his favour. Got a little bit of luck, but you've still got to take that opportunity.
He's got himself in a good position, up 3 positions already. So, you know, when you're in touch with the leaders there like that at the opening stages of the race, that he finds himself in a good spot. He's obviously got good car pace, and so what he needs to do is just settle down, keep in touch with the leaders and let this race play out and let everyone calm down a little bit.
Righto, Sam, man, time to talk to you a little bit about race strategy. Safety car was to happen right now. I reckon we'd have 45 cars in the pit lane for a service.
Yeah, and that's what we love about there's a little bit of wiggle room there as far as strategy. So obviously everyone doesn't want to pit, but yeah, you'd be crazy not to give up that position and if the safety car came out and the field was bunched up, because it really would bite you hard if you missed out on that opportunity. But I think they'll all be holding their breath just to make sure that this race can go a little bit longer, just so they can look after that tyre life.
And Lockie, cross to you from pit lane. Longer lap here at Sebring, 2 minutes in terms of qualifying spec, a little bit longer that in terms of race trim. That leaves a little bit of opening in terms of strategy. Talk to me about Scott Gamble at the tail end of the field at the moment. Get your crystal ball out. Reckon he'll pit early?
If it starts to affect his lap speed, being caught up in traffic potentially. The other one that I'll be keeping a close eye on to see what he does in terms of strategy is Jared Filsell, who is absolutely storming through the field. He has made up 19 positions already since the start of this race. He's up to 24th spot after starting out of grid position number 43. So I was expecting that he might stop early, but if he can keep making this progress on the track, then he might not need to.
Well, he's going to pick off another one. It was Rick Kuznetsov who was to the inside on the run down to Sunset, and really does put the sun to set over that move. Kuznetsov kind of sidestepped him just a little bit. Rick Kuznetsov will have Adam Briggs and Sean McNamara in behind him. So McNamara has been one of the drivers that tumbled through the order in terms of lap number 1. We're talking to him about confidence from the team level. That's not confidence inspiring for lap number 1 of the season.
Well, we always see a car that's Andrew Youssef. He's in the pits, so yeah, I wonder what is that early strategy. Has he got a drama there? It's a little bit strange. We probably weren't expecting to see that lap 5, even though we know that there is that opportunity to take that early stop.
I'll tell you what, I was pulling out some numbers and doing a little bit of looking at bits and pieces. The last 2 years, the way the results have gone, I believe it was actually Filsell who went on to win race number 1 and won the championship. Last year, it was Madison Down who won race number 1, and he finished second in year number 1, and it was Brady Myers who finished third. Well, last year, it was Down followed by Myers home. Brady Myers for a win this year, boys?
Anything's possible, especially being such early stages of this race, and there's a lot of talent there that you were just speaking about, so anything's possible.
There's a difference between statistics and numerology, I think, Scott.
Hey, look, I wave the magic wand. Whatever that wand comes up with, it tends to roll out my mouth. So, look, I'll have to go digging for some more fun facts as the season progresses. But Sebring, home to the season opener 2 years in a row. Now it chalks up season number 3. Who is going to make it their night of nights to kick things off? Keep half an eye on it. Just looking at Robert here. There's the first incident. That's the big one.
And he was our mover a few hours. I want to see how he go for tonight. He obviously was started back in the 17th, I think. So a lot of damage to the front of that Logitech G Ford. But man, oh man, that's really going to make his night a lot more difficult than what it already was.
More than a lot more difficult. There are not many parts left attached to that car there, and in fact there's no badge left on the front to even be able to sit down and tell you exactly what manufacturer is as the Mustang of Bo Albert comes through. The replay's going to tell the story, and I get the feeling it's not going to look pretty. Run down in, the right-hander, clamber over the curbs over here, gets checked up. That's Dylan Rudd just ahead of him. Gilliam it is up ahead and makes contact with Dylan O'Shea.
Oh, in front of him.
Kicked that one off.
Oh, he was an innocent bystander. You could see that he checked up. He saw the incident happen, got a little bit of contact at the rear, and that fired him into the fence. So just a bad situation, just in the wrong spot at the wrong time for him.
Well, unfortunately, he's going to be struggling with not the aerodynamic performance he maybe would have liked, and probably not the engine performance he would have liked for the rest of things.
Yeah, surprised he didn't pit, but yeah, at the end of the day, what can you do? It's obviously going to be a lengthy stop. He's got some damage there, but you touched on it there. My concern is what his engine power is like. You know, sometimes you take a knock like that to the nose. Yes, your aero is going to struggle, but has he got any engine damage? So that'll be something that he'll have to monitor as the laps go on.
I think the other cars, was it Gilliam that was the other car that got tagged quite heavily there and maybe went around? So I think he's gone for a little bit of a tumble through the order as things have started out a 10th spot for Andrew Gilliam, so just inside 10th spot. Won a race last year, was feeling confident. Indeed, he led the championship at one stage last year. Now is outside the top 20 as it currently stands. It's going to be a long race from here, Sandman.
Geez, you think the boys can settle down for a little bit? Lap number 6, I think they all just need to take a breath. Obviously, that was just victim of circumstances, that incident, and when you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Or as we look at this replay too, now this is what we were talking about at the start. It's on the exit there where everything starts to narrow up into the braking zone. Oh, there it is, a little bit of nose-to-tail contact. Oh, can he hold on to it? Oh, he got a helping hand. That was bad luck. He was holding on to that, but unfortunately just got that second tag, and that pointed him in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and that was Brady Baldwin tagging the rear end of Brian Borg. So it was Borg that was the car that went around. Unfortunately for him, he's going to go tumbling throughout the field. That was towards the tail end of things, though. So right back in and around that 40th spot. So it's going to be a long night for Brian Borg. He'd been in the wars with Connor Nixon a few times already. But how about this pack that's on screen at the moment? Dylan Rudd is just about at the front end of it. It's going to be Jake Maloney that leads the way at the moment. Joe Stewart's third in line over here. And I'll tell you what, this will be an interesting one to sort of keep half an eye on at the moment. Hampstead's up ahead of him, but 4.3 or so seconds up the road. So a long, long way up the road. And that's that next battle pack we're actually looking at the moment.
And a bit of an update from race control, guys, is that Jake Burton is going to cop a 5-second penalty for contact with Dylan Rudd on the opening lap of turn 15.
Oh no, Marcelo Rivera is another one of those cars. I think he might have been caught up in that Bo Albert incident as well.
Yeah, a lot of damage to that car too. So, it's heartbreaking, isn't it? When you get that damage early on, it's you just really want to put it behind you and try to salvage what you can, because crucially, as long as, if the night doesn't go your way, the best thing you can do is just salvage whatever points you can, because it's a long year.
Just to tell the story from Marcelo Rivera's, and I think that's Bo directly ahead of him, actually. So this is going to show he's going to be left with nowhere to go. The right-hander, the left-hander, and then it's Lamont here as the final right-hander out onto the back straight. You can just see how wide they were up ahead. It was Dylan Rudd that got tagged, and there's Gilliam, and that's what sent Gilliam jumping through the field.
And he could see all that unfolding in front of him too, and that's just like, man, there's nothing you can do. You try your best to check up, and unfortunately that just happened right in front of him. So hopefully he can just bounce back and, like I said, just salvage whatever points he can.
Lockie, talk to me a little bit. We were talking race strategy earlier on. Is it about lap 20 or so? What's the maximum fuel distance we're sort of looking at for these guys tonight?
So 23.5 laps is the fuel range, roughly. So if you were to fuel save, you could probably stretch it to 24. And if you were able to get 24 laps out of the tank, it means that you could get both of your pit stops out of the way as early as lap 18 and make it through to the checkered flag from there. So a fair bit of flexibility in terms of pit strategy. The other thing as well is that to change tyres takes around 9 seconds. So if you were to change tyres in both stops, that would be 18 seconds that you'd stay stationary, but you're going to need about 38 seconds worth of fuel to get to the checkered flag. So by doing some fuel saving, there is potentially a fair bit of time that you can save in the pit stops, even if you do choose to change tyres on both occasions. So that's why some of these drivers are going to be quite content to sit in the draft of one another rather than necessarily go for aggressive overtaking manoeuvres, unless your name is Jared Philsell, because his march forward continues.
Oh, I can tell you what, I'm listening on board with Dylan Rudd as it currently stands. So here's the positions gained since the start of the race. Philsell plus 27, Stewart plus 11, Maloney, Brenton Hobson and Kurt Stenberg all plus 10. And I can tell you as well, boys, I was chatting to the Sydney Sim Racing outfits and sort of gauging things up and down. I can tell you both Brady Baldwin and Brenton Hobson, next to no laps of practice. They literally, all they had to prepare for this race was last night. Other issues and work and bits and pieces sort of getting in the way. So race 1 preparation was not what they wanted in terms of things. So that's why Hobbo started at the rear and started climbing through.
I think finally we can say that it looks like that a lot of these drivers have started to settle themselves down, getting into a bit of a rhythm. But at the moment, I think everyone's just sort of playing out. As I say, that a little bit of side by side there. But, you know, at the end of the day, they know that there's so much that can play out in this race. I don't know about a safety car. What do you reckon? There was almost that chance that we saw when we saw the incident earlier, but it's not huge for safety cars here around here, is it?
Nice light racing surface in terms of where the contact most often happens. Except for when you find the barrier on the inside of the track. There tends to be not too much on the inside of the track around here, but in the meantime, first penalty of the season, first drive-through penalty of the season is the car coming through. Number 07, it was what we just said. Brady Baldwin dives into the pit lane to serve that, and well, I think that punishment fits the crime. Unfortunately for Borg, was tagged and spun around. Brady Baldwin's going to have to trundle through the pit lane one extra time here tonight.
One thing I do like about, regardless of whether you get the penalty, get it over and done with. Get down pit lane as soon as you can. Get it over and done with, and then push on. He'll find himself now in a little bit of clear air, but he would be fingers crossed for a bit of safety car action, because then that brings the field all back together.
In terms of the even stops, ladies and gents, we're going to be approaching that sort of window, 42 laps. Well, that's going to be 14 laps in terms of splitting the stints nice and evenly up. We are rapidly approaching that. It's about 5 laps away. End of lap number 14 is where we're going to set things. But in the meantime, Jordan Ross getting a little bit of a hurry up, and it's Josh Anderson. I think he's been working on his Morse code skills in the off-season.
That's Braille for I'm faster and I want to come through if you don't mind. But man, there's a heap of cars. I was just looking at that when we had that wider shot. There's so many cars in this train. But Anderson very keen to get the nose up the inside here. He's putting that TTR nose right on the edge of that bumper. Knows to play it smart through there. It is really only single file, even though there is a little bit of room there. But the fastest way through there is single file. What he needs to do is set himself up here and try to get through this right-hander and hopefully get a toe into the braking zone.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons actually we're starting to see a little bit of that aggression now coming from Josh Anderson is because if you have a look at the next car up the lane, see that? The 707 starting to disappear just a fraction out of sight. He's out of the drafting range as it currently stands. Shows the nose. Just wanted to put it in the back of his mind. You got to get on down here. Ross gets it in wide as they get into the final corner. Job done. Gets it turned underneath him for Josh Anderson. Now he's going to try and wiggle the car out of the final corner. Moves his way up into P number 17. Well, Jordan Ross, how's your Morse code skills? Is it time for a little bit of a reply? A little bit of return of serve? Maybe you can tap away a thank you. Is that what he'll be thinking?
At the end of the day, I'm glad that he managed to get the job done. I said that it was crucial that he got that exit nice because he can carry that speed down that long straightaway. Anderson managed to get the job done. Didn't make a liar out of me, and now he can sort of push on. But yeah, exactly right. What he needs to do is start to clear these guys now because he doesn't want to return a serve. He'll be looking at his rearview mirror and you can see the amount of cars that are ready to pounce. So if he's got that pace, now's the time to use it, and then he can tack onto the group that's just in front of him.
Man, I'll tell you what, more than any other car I've actually seen racing around here as well, the V8 supercars clamber over those curbs at the end of the first sector on the right-hand side. No other car that really takes to the racing around here. You don't see it from GT3 cars, they don't like it. LMP2, GTP, yep, there'll be none of that. They're prototypes, they like to keep all four wheels on the ground, they like to keep their aero profile nice and sealed. So, tell you what, next weekend will be the Spring 12-hour for the iRacing scene. So there'll be a few guys up and down the field that have started that practice, but the real practice for that will begin after tonight when they survive the back end of this one. Any drivers you think up and down the field might want to drive in a GTP?
I'm going to say everyone. They're a great car to drive, aren't they? But this is such a different beast, and I love that the Aussie V8s just love beating up over the curbs, getting up on two wheels. I reckon I just love seeing that aggression from these cars. And when it's a good feeling when you're on a lap and you nail that curb right. It gets a little bit of air up on two wheels. It settles down nicely. You get the lap down. I reckon that is really something key to our series.
Yeah, it's no other car on the sim. Maybe the Porsche Cup car. That's about the only one that might get somewhere like that. Have a look at the battle graph. Have a look how far down the field the battle graph goes. The battle for ninth? Well, there's what, 13, 14 cars involved in this one? This is going to be the midfield crunch. This is going to be so important to a number of drivers. And don't forget, at the tail end of the season, 12 rounds away, 20 drivers automatically get an invite back. That's what they'll be thinking. A few of them might be starting to think about it already, but anyone who does so, in James Scott's words, that's a little too soon.
So just a bit of an observation for you on strategy, guys. We talked about lap number 14 being the lap that you would pit on if you wanted to split the tyre wear evenly across your three sets of tyres. You stop once on lap 14 and for your second stop on lap 28. Wouldn't surprise me if some of the drivers in the lead pack stretched out a bit longer than that, though, because the danger of pitting early or around that mark is that at the moment, as things stand, you would come out in a massively congested section of the racetrack, and any time that you might gain from the undercut from having fresh tyres, you'll lose in having to work your way through traffic. Also, a bit of news for race control is that Andrew Gilliam's got a drive-through penalty for the incident with Dylan O'Shea.
Yeah, well, he was the car that was wide at the entry to Le Mans, so yep, that doesn't sound too far-fetched in terms of things. So, yep, that'll be the way that one all lines up. So, Gilliam, like we said, won a couple races last year, looked a real title contender. Now finds himself outside the 20, and he's going to find himself outside the 30 after that penalty. How about this breakaway pack, though? In the meantime, 8 spots, Richard Hampstead. There's a huge gap, about 5 seconds from Richard Hampstead back to Jake Maloney. And Maloney's the head car in that battle for 9th. He's sitting in a really nice spot here as Hampstead.
It's nice when you've got no one in front of you slowing you up and you've got no one behind you putting pressure on you. He'll know that that pack behind him has been battling. So for him, it's all about just running his own race, basically. There's no absolute zero pressure. He'll be thinking about that pit stop, but he doesn't have to worry about that yet. So, yeah, although he's lost touch with the leaders, it's nice that he's got no pressure around him at all.
Just looking at average lap times, by the way, and the driver over the last 10 laps who's been the fastest driver of the race, that's not including the first 2 laps, is currently Brady Myers. So it looks like he's looking after his tyres really nicely. He's starting to suck up to the rear end of things. Gilliam's going to come to the lane to serve that drive-through penalty. So for Brady Myers, I've got half a feeling there might be some aggression shown. If he can't get past Ethan Gregolt, there'll be some fuel saving to the inside. The 35 to the 990. Rudd's going to cop a whack. This one's not resolved. The Lobs Esports teammates and the Speed Cafe liveries still going to be nose to tail in terms of this pack. But for Dylan Rudd, it's his teammate Jared Filsell who's on a charge. Look at him, he's up to 12. Now he's going to poke the nose to the inside. The teammates won't fight this too hard. Rudd gives way and he'll let Jared Filsell try and open a hole. I get the feeling this might be, you find the hole, I'll follow you through. Have a crack at him, Jared.
Now, I might be wrong, but I thought Jared had already got the job done on him. So I don't know if there was an incident there or whether I was just not paying attention. But, yeah, at the end of the day, Jared's now got the job done. And, I wonder if there's, Dylan seemed to be struggling a little bit with his car. But as we check out the replay, this is P3 that we're looking on our screen here. What's going to happen here? Is it a dive up the inside? Nice late move. The car looks stable under brakes. Bit of smart driving there for Gregolt and just gives the position over.
Yeah, and I think the mindset from that one will be certainly, yep, let's put a bank of points on the board. He's down the inside. I'm not necessarily going to be fighting on the exit. And the key factor for Greg Galt, let me be pulled back up to those front two. If Greg Galt can go with a lot of them, and Brady Myers just pulls him back up towards the rear bumper of Madison down just a fraction, he won't complain too much. That'll work in his net race favour. So that'll be what he's thinking. So far, it's going to be 12 laps on the book when we cross the end of this one. Start of lap number 13, and it's been the 088 of James Scott, the Lobs Esports new team for the year. They parted ways with Synergy Sim Sports last season. They created their own racing outfit, and it's going to be P1 on the books for 12 laps of this race, but he's punching the hole in the air. Is it the wily character of Madison Down that's just sitting back, just watching? Come on, have a crack. Let's see how far you can go. I'm going to save every scrap of fuel, every skerrick that I can possibly get out of this thing, and I'll beat you through the lane.
Yep, and I think he'll know that Madison's probably just sitting there. There's no real need at the moment to push. There's so much to play out as far as some strategy with pit stops and everything else. You know, Madison doesn't need to put too much pressure on himself and maybe use up his tyres. So I think he's probably quite content just to sit there and watch how the race unfolds.
In the meantime, I think this is Forza El Nabi. He's going to go side by side at the moment. No, sorry, it's my apologies. It's going to be Wayne Burke and Luke Rosella. So Synergy Sim Racing versus Lobs Esports. There'll be no love lost between these guys, as finally he's forced to make way. And the 55 of Rosella stamps a little bit of authority on that one. Rosella was one of the real bright stars of last year. Showed a couple of flashes of brilliance. And as one of the drivers, I think that'll be worth keeping an eye on. And I think that's really, really earned him this opportunity to drive for the Lobs Esports outfit. That's going to help him in the long run here, Sandman. The opportunity to work with the likes of James Scott and Jared Filsell.
Yeah, absolutely. And smart bit of head racing between them too. You know, you can see when someone's making a position on you, just roll out the throttle a tiny bit, just sneak in behind them and just push on. You know, sometimes people aren't, you know, smart enough. Sometimes, I guess, the red mist comes over and they'll try to push on and get that position back. But sometimes you're just better off just sliding in behind the back bumper. You know the job's been done on you and just push on.
Righto, so the numbers provided us by Lockie Mansell, 38 seconds of fuel that's got to be added to these race cars. Maybe you can chop off 3, 4, 5 seconds worth of that fuel across the distance. Who's going to be brave and going to be the first one into the lane? Conclusion of lap number 13. Well, there it is. One of the first pit stops we're going to see for the season. It's Jake Burton, who was alongside us for commentary for much of the Pro Series. Really got to pick his brain. And now he's thinking, I can advance myself in position. I want that undercut. Let's slap 4 fresh tyres at his Holden Commodore, and let's see how far he can skip down the road.
Don't forget he's got that penalty hanging over his head too, so it'll be interesting to see that if he takes that on now, get that over and done with. If it was me, I would, because like I said, you touch on the fact that if there's a late safety car, it bunches that field back up. So any penalties for me as a driver, I want to get them over and done with as soon as I can.
Yep, Sorono's now going to come to the lane as well. He was towards the tail end of the field. He's going to look to try and undercut, but I get the feeling everyone in that battle pack sort of from 9th through has an opportunity to undercut here. Here's the 097 of Forza El Nabi attached to the rear bumper of Griffin Gardner. These guys will know it's crunch time, but the problem is if they try and pull out of this chain, try and fight and squabble with each other a little bit too much on this lap, not only does the undercut in terms of tyres kick in, but that battle, that fighting, it'll sacrifice time. And look at the pace from Forza El Nabi. He's really closing on Griffin Gardner. And you can see the eagerness. He's so keen to be back in a V8 supercar, so keen to be back competing at the top level. I think he is going to be pressing a case for potentially championship candidates, the driver of the 097.
It's easy as a race driver to get frustrated too when you know you've got a little bit of pace in your car and you're battling someone around you. If you're getting held up just that little bit, what the best thing to do is just to sort of calm yourself down, or have someone in the team just calm you down, because, you know, we obviously know about pit stops, and you talk about that possibility of jumping in the pit lane, you know, getting that fresh tyre advantage, but it is so easy to get frustrated when you see like this view that we can see on board now with Forzan, when you're continually looking at the rear bumper or the rear wing of that car in front of you and you know you've got pace, it can be frustrating.
Is it just me, or it looked like he's got a little bit more downforce? Very, very strong in terms of the braking capabilities of that 097. And is Gardner going to come to the lane? Are they both going to come to the lane? No, they're going to push on. So they're running it. Oh, my word, was he close to whacking that tyre barrier on the exit of the last corner. So for Griffin Gardner, clear out of the nose of the car, and he is pressing on every little bit of margin of racetrack. And they're all using, I tell you what, Luke Rosella out of the last corner nearly grabbed that tyre barrier as well. They're pressing on here, Sandman. I think they've all sensed undercut restart time is here. First pit stop of the season is coming. It's time to really, really scrap anything out of these tyres. Anything you've got, McNamara now to the lane.
It's heart and mouth stuff, isn't it, when you watch that last corner and you see just how close they take it up against the wall. But so much on the line, but so much to be gained out there. And there's a number of cars that are fired off into pit lane. And we said that, you know, for these teams and drivers that maybe find themselves back in the pack a little bit, maybe some traffic around them, it's a good time to jump in and get those fresh tyres.
Yeah, Lockie, pit stops down towards the tail end of the field. They look to be relatively short, not dumping a whole bunch of fuel at this at the moment. Everyone just seems to be that bog standard strategy. Get about half the fuel out of the way, get the tyres on, get down the road, seems to be the case.
Yeah, the exception to that, Jake Burhan, so he was in pit lane for a total time of almost 60 seconds. And I believe that he did take the opportunity to serve that penalty then as well, so that's dropped him way back in the pack. But I think that he probably has put on a bit more fuel as well, so he will have a shorter stop a bit later on, which might work to his advantage if we get a safety car at some point.
Oh no, well that'll be interesting to keep half an eye on as well. A lot of the drivers were talking as well is there's sort of this strategy hole in terms of things. You don't want to necessarily be the first guy to dive to pit lane, get that undercut on, and all of a sudden you've got to defend for all your money because the tyres were off the back end of the thing. But you don't want to be the last guy to pit either because all of a sudden safety car falls in the middle of that window. Everyone else completes their second compulsory pit stop and they can skip down the road. So
that's exactly right, Scott. And one of the regulations that's changed this year, you might remember last year there was one occasion, I think it was at Belle Isle, where we saw people doing both of their compulsory pit stops under the same safety car, doing back-to-back stops. That's not permitted. That was one of the regulation changes for the sporting regs for the 2024 season. So you're now only allowed to execute one compulsory pit stop per safety car period. Which means that if you haven't done either of your stops and the safety car comes out, you're going to be at a significant disadvantage against the people who've already got their first stop out of the way.
Important to note those reg changes. Very, very important. To the inside now. An attack to the rear bumper. It's going to be the 35 machine, and Maloney gets the contact made his way and tumbles to the tail end of this one. And the 35 of Job Stewart just looking for a little bit of an edge come pit stop time. Now he's going to tumble back through that pack, perhaps. Might take the opportunity to see if he can re-rest. No, he's just going to push on. It's going to be maybe a 5-10 second worth of penalty. There's nothing he can do about that now. He'll just have to wear it.
Yeah, Maloney was doing such a great job. He was holding off Phil Cell. Phil Cell managed to get the job done on him, but then unfortunately just that little bit of nose-to-tail contact. He's struggling with the rear now. Obviously the tyres would have heated up a little bit with that slide, but thankfully he was still pointing in the right direction. I guess that'll keep the stewards busy just for the next couple of laps to determine what the outcome may be with that one.
Oh, look how close they are. Look how nose-to-tail in terms of things. So replay up at the top end of the screen. It was on. It wasn't a great run off the corner. And there's still nose to tail as they come around tower now, and it's still going to be about 8 cars. There's nothing covering these guys. We've got about 10 cars in less than 2 seconds. Absolutely nothing. Look at them scrapping for a little bit of space. You get that splitter out clear at the front of this pack, you can start skipping clear. Jared Philcell's proved that he can do it. He's inside the top 10 as it currently stands, and I don't think he can wait any longer. I think if you're in this queue, you got to pop to the lane, Sandman. Grab your destiny in both hands and see what you can make of it.
Absolutely, you beat me to the punch. I was just about to say I'm surprised that no one else has taken the opportunities. As we see our race leader, James Scott, he's decided to fire off to pit lane. These guys have got so much to gain because they're getting held up so much. If they fire off into pit lane, that free air and the fresh tyres will be a nice little recipe. Oh, you can see, there we go. They're starting to take that idea and they're coming into pit lane.
Yep, Burke is in. Tom Freer is in. Then it's going to be Matt Bowler as the next one of this queue. Hayden Veld, Jacob O'Reilly. So 5 cars pop out of that pack. Griffin Gardner's into the lane as well. Recognise that he's got that advantage over Jake Burton now. Wants to pop out with a little bit of clear air. The guys that have kicked on, though, back down at the front. Scott's into the pit lane. Madison down isn't. Myers is still out there on the track. And Ethan Greek Galt as well. Looks about, maybe it's not splitting this race nice and equally, Lockie. It's going to be take it long.
Well, one of the areas, as we have a look at this replay of Job Stewart, I'll tell you what, I reckon that Job's going to be a bit of strife with the officials with that one because he was nowhere near far enough down the inside of Jake Maloney. But we've seen that one of the areas where Trans-Tasman Racing has been consistently strong is race strategy. We saw it last year. There were several occasions where they didn't have the fastest cars, but they were still able to jag a win through making the right strategic decisions. So is this call to stay out and take advantage of the clear track potentially going to give them an edge over James Scott, who might now find himself having to battle through a bit of traffic?
Yeah, I think one of the weighing up factors, sorry to cut there, but I reckon one of the weighing up factors is the margin they've got back to sort of Hampstead and Jared Fieldstall back in 6. Obviously, they need to start thinking about everyone else that's sort of pitted back behind them, but we always knew that there was that little bit of margin between the leaders and where Richard Hampstead was. So I guess they feel they've got a couple of seconds up their sleeve where they could sacrifice a couple of laps and know that they're going to give up a little bit of time and maybe carry some of that pace a little bit later on in the stint.
Is this perhaps James Scott saying, all right, you guys are going to fuel save? That's fine. I'm going to punch clear and I'm not going to let you fuel save. If you're going to come after me, it's going to have to be with pace. So he's basically saying to these guys, you want it? Come get it, boys.
Just trying to look at the times. I don't know if they're fuel saving much. 2:02s last time round. What we see, our fastest time by Scott was into the 59. So yeah, they're a little bit down on time, but you'd expect that when you start to see tyre grip and that start to go away. Lap 18, as we see Phil Sell, a number of other drivers that have fired off into pit lane. Josh Anderson after that unfortunate contact, he's now in the lane as well. So they're all starting to get these pit stops over and done with, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all starts to play out over the next couple of laps.
One of the good news. Sorry, I was just going to say, so a couple of updates. So, unsurprisingly, 5-second penalty for Job Stewart for that incident with Jake Maloney. And the other good news for James Scott is that I was talking about traffic, but he does have the 3.4-second gap to the next car ahead. So he is able to punch out some very quick sector times at the moment with a bit of clear track at his disposal.
And my apologies to Anderson. Sorry, it was Maloney that got that contact. So apologies here to Josh Anderson.
That's exactly the point I was actually going to point out as well, Lockie. 3 seconds. So if he wanted a window, this is it. He's just barely got the window. And Ethan Griegalt's about 3.5 seconds behind them. This is an important one. So Griegalt's come in, down Myers, Hampstead, all continued on. This could be an opportunity for Ethan Griegalt to push himself back onto that podium for the Evolution Racing team. A driver that has himself a couple of Hyundai Excel championships to note in real life. Jumped in the sim, got the opportunity to go and chase things from a real world perspective, and he's taken that one with both hands. I'm wondering how far until some more of these drivers get an opportunity in the real world. We talked to Jake Burton as well, and he said, yeah, look, it's been a real honour. He's actually gotten to drive one of these machines in real life, and he said, boy, is it an honour. Boy, that power, you just don't feel it in the sim sometimes, and there's, just an honour to get behind the wheel of these things in real life.
Makes me so jealous. I've had talks with Madison Down and Jake about their experience in driving supercars, and they've been lucky enough to go through a couple of different generations of supercar as well. So very jealous, but really good to see that these guys getting an opportunity, especially with their ties with Brad Jones Racing in the E-Series, that to have that opportunity as a sim racer to drive a real-world V8 supercar, that's pretty bloody special.
Well, to any of you watching along at home, perhaps that'll be you next year. So start working on your V8 supercar program now. It's going to take you a year to get behind the wheel of that car. I'm not capable of it. What about you, Sam? Are you quick enough to behind the wheel?
No, that's why I'm behind a microphone, mate. I can't even get behind a sim wheel to keep up with these guys. So I'll stick to the microphone, I think, for now.
Don't forget too that Job Stewart actually got to drive one of the current Gen 3 Erebus Camaros today as well. So he's actually had experience in a current supercar, current spec car.
How good is that?
Oh, I tell you what, he'd be licking his lips probably to get behind the wheel of one of those things in the sim later in the year. Hopefully, fingers crossed, everything goes well there. In the meantime, though, it's going to be James Scott on board as we currently stand. Brady Myers is now had to pit because he had to cover off Ethan Griegalt. Now he's popped back out ahead of him, so starting to close back up in on the rear bumper of Ian Ford. Ford still yet to pit. There are 4 cars who are yet to come to the lane. One of them is your championship winner from last year. The number 1 alongside Richard Hampstead, Jake Maloney, Ian Ford, the 4 yet to take their first pit stops, and this will be annoying James Scott. There's an opportunity to punch clear here and really put a stamp of authority down. Myers is now down to about 1.5 seconds, so he's coming. Ford is going to be holding these guys up, and this might be a strategy call. He'll be in charge. Oh, to the inside. Scott had to pull that trigger. Could not wait anymore because the guys behind were coming.
Yeah, and the person that was loving that battle too is Madison Down. He hasn't pitted yet, so if he knows that he's getting held up a little bit, that works in his favour, because obviously Madison's got that clear air, so he's able to keep punching on, but he is on 19-lap-old tyres. So, but yeah, he would have been licking his lips knowing that he was caught in that little battle for a moment, but I don't think it'll be too much longer before you see Madison Down fire off in the pit lane.
Well, that'll be Richard Hampstead, not Madison Down, coming to pit lane. Jake Maloney's going to be the next driver to come down through the lane, and I get the feeling Ian Ford might dip out of the way as well, because he's used to his teammate Ethan Greek-Galt's about to run its course. Get the feeling that's why he's still in this queue. It would have represented an opportunity to be there. Yep, going to dive out to the lane, not looking to get in the way of these guys for too much longer. It'll be looking to resurrect something from his race in terms of things. Keeping an eye down towards the tail end of the field. Bo Albert still circulating all the way down in 42nd. Boy, that's frustrating.
And Lockie, well, I guess we talk about that transition down pit lane and then making your pit stop and then get backing up to speed. We look at that gap between leader Madison Down and James Scott, 37 seconds. What's the time frame for these guys to get down pit lane and get the job done?
So normally it equates, at the moment we're seeing average pit stop times of anywhere between sort of 48 and 50 seconds. A bit longer in some cases, but yeah, you'd have to say that based on those numbers, James Scott is going to emerge with a pretty handy lead after this first round of stops.
It took a second out of him on that last lap, just shy of a second out of him. He is absolutely motoring at this point in time, is James Scott. Opportunity coming his way. He's going to try and grab it. Brady Myers is really, really closed up on his rear bumper at this point in time. There's the lap charts in between those sorts of guys. Rear brake discs alight as they run down towards Cunningham, through Collier, the left-hander, and then back towards Tower before the back straight. And that is Brady Myers, not Madison Down, even though they look so much alike in terms of their cars at this point in time. He'll be sniffing an opportunity, the driver of the 22. And, well, that's stat, boys. I get the feeling. There's an opportunity for Brady Myers to win this one. It's creeping up.
I'll tell you what,
There's Down.
Jared Fuel-Cell, so he's up to 8th position. He's just punched out the fastest lap of the race, 2 minutes, 0.8. Next car up the road, Richard Hampstead, 3.7 seconds ahead. But with the pace that he's showing at the moment, Jared Fuel-Cell, he's not out of contention for a podium. Not by any stretch of the imagination. We're still, still got halfway to go in the race, and he came from Stone Mother was last on the grid to be running comfortably inside the top 10.
I'll tell you what, he's got the fastest lap of the race, by the way, by 1,000th of a second to his teammate. James Scott, 8.18. Jared Fuel-Cell, 2-minute flat, 8.17. My word, nothing but 1,000th of a second over 6 kilometres.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you'll take it, won't you? As long as you get that purple next to your name and you see the fastest lap, that's pretty good. But yeah, exactly what you touched on. There's nothing in it for that distance, and to have that time frame, that's incredible.
That's going to be a stat, I think, that'll be popped up a few times throughout the year. In the meantime, this is what we're looking at. Madison Down has thrown significantly less fuel at the number 1 machine, but the problem for him, how long he stayed out. Now resurfaces in 4th position, but have a look at that pit stop time. 1.5 seconds less. That is 1.5 seconds less of fuel. I'd say that he probably doesn't have to add to that car. Lockie, think that's all fuel saved?
Potentially, yeah. And I mean, he was sitting in behind James Scott, wasn't he, for pretty much that entire opening stint before Scott finally pitted. So it could be that he has a shorter final pit stop. And we see that the approach that TTR consistently takes to these races was they play the long game. They focus on having a nice light fuel load in the back end of the race, and the cars always seem to get quicker relative to their opposition as the race progresses. So don't count Madison Down out of this one, not yet.
Count him out at your own peril is generally the way that one goes. He's going to have 4-lap fresher tyres over James Scott, 3 laps over Ethan Greek-Galt, 2 laps over Brady Myers, and the other thing to consider is 4.5 litres a lap as well. So he's going to have 9 less litres in that tank worth of fuel to his nearest rival on tyres. That means taking a little bit less out of those tyres, a little bit less heat in terms of things. But this battle's not going anywhere by any stretch of the imagination. Richard Hampstead, Griffin Gardner. Griffin was back on form. It was good to see him back on form, wasn't it, in the qualifying series, Sandman?
Yeah, absolutely, and he's got his work cut out for him now because he's got Richard Hampstead who's behind him, and we touched on before how Richard was enjoying that clear air. Now he's got a bumper in front of him. Looks like he's carrying a bit more pace here too, Richard. So it looks like he's going to make that move up the inside. I don't know if Griffin will make it too hard for him. He'll probably just move over, just let him have the position and tuck in behind him. Looks like he was listening to me, wasn't he?
Oh, good race drivers talk to good race drivers. Good race drivers all think alike, don't they?
That's what. Well, it's when the red mist comes down. That's when you got to separate where the good drivers and the smart decisions come into it.
I don't know. I kind of like this from. You reckon Jared Filsell's got a little bit of red mist, but he's done it. The key factor for me is in ages past. If Jared Filsell would have been in this position, red mist would have 100% descended, and maybe the execution wouldn't have been quite so key. It has just been clean, concise, get the job done, and put him in the rearview mirror tonight, hasn't it?
And I think he'll be enjoying it too, as we see on the bottom of the screen. And dive up the ends, getting the job done there. So that's Madison Down just pushing on. But look, at the end of the day, I think Jared would be enjoying it. It's never good to start rear of field, but he had it pretty easy in the qualifying series, and now he finds himself where he's actually racing, getting the passes done on some competition, and he's going to have to race these guys for the rest of the year. So for him, I guess it gives him that opportunity to weigh up who the rest of his field and the rest of the competition is for the year.
Well, it's one of those things that separates the good from the great, right? Is that the good drivers, they'll be dealt a hard hand. They might whinge, they might complain, they might really do too much about it. There's been nothing of that from Jared Filsell. He went, yep, okay, maybe I've been a little bit out of form. Maybe I've pushed margins just a little bit too far. He's reset and he just went, right, that's it. I'm going to dominate this qualifying series. Dominate it, he did. He's back. Maybe this is his title. If he continues the rest of the season like this, man, he started from 44th and he's within what? 10, 20 seconds of the lead at the moment? 15, within 15 seconds of the lead.
Yeah, and none of that has been gifted to him too. Look at that positions. Positions gained 35 spots. You get in Hobbo's here and go, mate, well done. You've made up 17 positions. Then you break his heart and tell him, yeah, but Filsell's done 35. But at the end of the day, it's an impressive stat. I think Jared will be enjoying it, and it'll be good for the racecraft too, because I think you get yourself, not that I've ever had the joys of leading races like this and not having too much pressure, but when you find yourself back in the field and you have to start making those moves and start to be thinking about how strategic this race needs to play out, I think it's good for the racing mindset.
And the other thing that it'll be really, really good for is, I think one of the things that makes this even better is it uncomplicates his mindset, Sandman. It's, okay, you're going to be starting at the back of the field. There's no fuel saving. There's no tyre saving. No. Go out and get spots. That makes it really, really simple for a race car driver. Now, it's still not over in terms of this one. O'Reilly still getting roughed up just a little bit by Blake Warboys, and the 29 machine as well is still settling in there as Maloney. And trying to settle himself down the inside on Warboys as they get down to the hairpin. Gets down there, gets the job done. So he'll square that car off, and all three of them struggling already with those rear tyres and getting the power down to the ground. And that battle pack that was, from 9th back to 23rd or so, that one's split up a little bit as the strategy starts to play its way out. McNamara now round the outside, tries to get the car squared off and turned back in on Adam Briggs. Not quite able to get the job done this time. So the battle pack, the big extended chain is broken up this time, and now we've got lots of these little ones. And now McNamara starts to show his skills in wrapping out messages on the rear bumper.
It was nice and close, wasn't it? But it's good hard racing, isn't it? Like, look at the nose and the tail. Yeah, the sides are buffed up a little bit, but the noses and the rears, they're all pretty straight. So yeah, there's been a tiny little bit of contact, but nothing too aggressive, which is good to see.
Been clean, it's been door to door. It's exactly what you expect from good touring car racing, right? It's aggressive, but it's not too aggressive. That's the key.
And how's Madison down now? Look at this. Oh, sorry to cut you off, mate.
Yeah, so just looking at the strategy for these drivers in the lead pack, so you'll notice that Brady Myers is very close to the back of James Scott at the moment, only about half a second separating our two race leaders. However, the bad news for Brady Myers is that he was in at the pits for almost 3 seconds less than James Scott. That means less fuel. That means potentially a longer second pit stop, so that might make things a bit tougher for him later on. So what Madison Down needs to do here, and we're starting to see a bit of evidence of it, he's punching out some fast laps. If he can get to the rear bumper of the cars ahead of him, and then he's got a shorter second pit stop, he might be able to leapfrog his rivals in that final pit stop. So that's what it's all going to come down to, I think.
And are my eyes deceiving me, or has Brady Myers really raced up to the rear bumper of James Scott and then just gone, yep, I'm happy, I'm going to sit here now?
Yeah, well, I guess the thing for him is that he can put that pressure on Scott, whether Scott's fazed by it or not. I think it's good that Brady's right there, just putting it to him and just letting him know that this race isn't all going his own way. You know, at the end of the day, James Scott may not be pushing on as hard either. You know, they obviously know that it's still lap 24 or 42. So, but it's always good to keep that pressure on. And I think now it'll be just a matter of time between, you know, these guys racing together. And then before we know it, it'll be Madison Down just slowly knocking on the door.
Replay, that never fills me with confidence. Down to the inside. Yep, manages to get the car pulled up. Oh, no. Here we go. Still gets the car squared off. Still going side by side. The 888 machine is going to be that of Rick Kuznetsov and Matthew Bowler. So Altus Esports Australia versus Evolution Racing Team. And eventually Kuznetsov's going to get the job down here.
It's not over yet, I don't think. Look at him, still going around the outside.
Not done.
What about here, though? Does he think about a dive? No. How good was that racing? Got a little bit of nose to tail there, but really good give and take through there. Nice to watch.
That is just really, really good car racing. And now the next driver that's going to line themselves up to have a go at the rear bumper of the 12 car of Matthew Bowler is going to be that of Hayden Veld, I believe it was. No, sorry, my apologies. Luke Rosella in the 55 car that's just come up to his rear bumper as well. So this battle pack's starting to form up. It's got 4 cars in it at the moment. Briggs is the next car back down the road. It's about 3 seconds back off the rear bumper of these guys. Another car I was keeping an eye on inside the top 10, by the way. Forza Nami over the last couple of laps has taken about half a second a lap out of Ethan Grieg-Galt. So Grieg-Galt's undercut didn't quite work out, and now Forza El Nabi's taken that opportunity to really start grabbing and pulling himself back up to Grieg-Galt. This will be a battle for 4th spot, I think, towards the tail end of this race.
It wasn't that long ago that we saw Madison Down get the job done on Ethan too. So whether that tyre life is just starting to go away from him or what the case is, but still in touch and still where he needs to be. So nothing to worry about too much just yet, but yeah, obviously he doesn't want to let the leaders get too far away from him.
0.4 of a second, by the way, from Madison Down taken out of Brady Myers on the last lap, and about half a second that he put over Ethan Grieg-Galt behind. So those margins sort of seeing and soaring at the moment, but you can definitely say that Myers is fuel saving as it currently stands. How about this drive, though, from Richard Hamstead? I'm enjoying this inside the top 10. And if he can find a little bit of a turn of speed, he is faster than Ethan Grieg-Galt at the moment, but it's going to take him a significant... He's basically going to be faster than him for the rest of the race to even get there sort of in the dying stages. If he could chalk up a top 5, he'd be over the moon with that one. Gardner's there. Phil Sell's still in 8th. Phil Sell's still coming at them. And Jake Burton, after that penalty, would have... If he didn't have that 5-second penalty, would have been right on the rear bumper of Griffin Gardner. So there'll be a little bit of sitting there, crossing the arms, going, yeah, probably shouldn't have done that, but, you know, reasonable result given he had contact with another car.
Touching on Richard Hamstead, you know, we said that before he had that battle there with Griffin Gardner. He needed to get that job done because behind them, like you touched on as well, is Jared Filsell. He's just slowly starting to pick away at this group. So I don't think it'll be too much longer before Filsell's on the back of Gardner, and then he'll be starting to think about Hamstead in front of him. But can you imagine that? The speed that and the way that Filsell's just coming through this race. Lap 26, there's still plenty of time to get the job done. We talk about a podium, but man, if they get racy up the front, could we talk about a win? That'd be pretty incredible.
Oh, don't you do that to me. Don't you do that to me. I'll last the first challenge. I'd be a fan of that. All right, in the meantime, he's got to go hunting is the big key. Keeping our eyes up at the front of the field. Another Logitech G replay coming our way, and it's the continuation of this battle as well, as Matthew Bowler is still getting roughed up a little bit, but all line ball. Now down to the inside, Luke Rosella. Looks like he might get the job done down at Sunset, and that is going to be the way that one was written. So Bowler may have gotten some fresh tyres on a little bit earlier, but starts to drop through that field as the rubber starts to ail and fall away from him. Oh, Down is lurking in the background of that shot. He's getting bigger and bigger and bigger every lap.
I'd love to hear the comms between Myers and Madison down. Obviously, the TTR boys will be talking about how this race is starting to play out. They'll know that Madison's got that little bit of pace, and I like that Myers is right there, just putting that pressure back onto the back of James Scott. So it'll be interesting to see that the amount of time it takes for Down to get back to Myers. I know he doesn't have to push on too hard and worry about getting back to him too quick, but if he does start to catch up to him, does he just move over a little bit? Let Madison Down have a crack at James Scott, because obviously we touched on it's just those couple laps of fresher tyres that might just help him get to the lead and start to push on if he decides to.
They say a racing car driver's career is probably, 15 years, from 20 to 35. After that, you're sort of over the hill. You're a co-driver status. Well, Madison Down, in his tenure on iRacing as a supercars driver, he's won on just about every piece of silverware that's possible to pick up in terms of that cabinet. Spoke to him prior to the season and asked him, well, what keeps you going? What keeps you driving? I'm not done. I want to win more. I'm not done. That driver, the competitive. It's the competitive spirit. He's just such a competitive person. He just wants to keep going. I don't care if I've won it. I want to win it again. I want more of them.
This is where I get to put a couple of tickets on myself. I don't normally get to do it much, but back in the old days of R Factor, there was this young lad that no one knew about. Oh, we're going to touch on some pit stops here. Zach's just come into the lane. But Madison Down was in his youth and starting in sim racing back in R Factor, and I happened to have had a team back in the day. Managed to sign him up. That was really good fun. But I remember his conversation. His first words were he wanted to know who was the fastest in the series, just so he knew where the level was at. And it didn't take him long. It was only a couple of races before he was up the front, giving grief to everyone. So you could see the talent that he had in his early days back in R Factor, and that's definitely shining to what he's been able to accomplish so far in his sim racing career.
In terms of things, there's so many experienced heads out there, isn't there, Sam, up and down the field in terms of things, but hearing that we've got an update on terms of the pit lane.
So yeah, just as this second round of pit stops approaches, which it is imminent now for a lot of our contenders, just thinking about how long the first round of pit stops were for our named players. So Brady Myers, we know that he's probably got a bit longer stop than the other two drivers in the top three. Looking at the pit stop times for James Scott and Madison Down, actually not much separating them. So even though Madison Down went a bit longer in that first stint, I still reckon that their pit stop times will be pretty line ball. A couple of drivers to keep an eye on though. So Griffin Gardner, he's 7th at the moment, but his first pit stop was quite long, so he's one who might stand to make up a position or two in the second round of pit stops. And also, he's buried a bit further down the order at the moment, but Luke Rosella, one of our Speed Cafe Lobs drivers, also had quite a long first pit stop, so he could stand to gain a number of spots in the second round of pit stops. So just a couple of strategic plays for us to keep an eye on as we get into the second round of stops.
Thanks, Lockie. That's incredible information down there from the lane, something we'll keep an eye on as the race continues to progress, as it does continue to progress for these guys. And you talked about Rosella. Down the inside, and now there is a change for the drivers in the lead because Myers has got sick of this Holden Station stuff. He's got sick of the fuel saving. He's got down the inside and he's got the job done. Or did we just see ourselves a rare mistake from the 088? This will tell the story as we get down into the hairpin, pinch the front brake, and he just could not pull that one up, James Scott. Well, Myers has got the lead. Scott's going to get it back. I guarantee you that'll happen. Pit stops, Lockie, you think he's going to jump to the lane?
Not yet, I don't think. Remember that these drivers all went quite long in the first round of pit stops, and the reason that they'll do the same in this second stint is for exactly the same reason. They don't want to get buried in traffic and lose any gain that they're going to have with the fresh tyres. So it won't be until some of the midfield runners start to pit that the leaders will think about their second stops.
I'll tell you what, they'll come out ahead of Ian Ford now. That's a really, really good observation, Lockie. That traffic, right back where Ian Ford is in about 28th at the moment, is not... There's cars just about everywhere. So something else on that factor, Sam, you had to chime in there?
Oh, no, I was just... I was impressed. Obviously not happy for James Scott, but happy for Myers because he was there putting the pressure to James Scott. It was easy for him just to sort of sit around and not worry about it. But we mentioned a couple of times just how close he was, just rattling the back bumper of Brady Myers, forced him into that little bit of a mistake, and now look at him go. Oh, slow down.
Slow
looks
down
like.
penalty for Luke Rosella. He's just done all that work to get to the head of this pack. Now he's going to go dropping back through the results, and he might dive to the lane. No, it's still not going to dive to the lane. So we are at the tail end of lap number 28, and if you want to split this race nice and evenly down the middle, split it into thirds with your 2 compulsory pit stops, they've just run past that marker. So we are in the final third, the final stanza of race number 1, and it will be an interesting note to see who goes long here. How long do they go? Under 10 to go. You reckon they'll wait that long, Lockie?
I reckon it'll be a bit of a monkey see, monkey do situation. So the leaders will look at what everybody else is doing and they will react accordingly. But just on that slowdown penalty for Luke Rosella, it's a circuit, isn't it, that because it has quite wide runoff areas and sections where you can drop wheels off the racetrack, it is a circuit where you can cop a slowdown penalty if you do get a bit too greedy with the track verges.
Yeah, those penalties are never fun, are they? But they're worse when you've got a couple of cars that are within, inches of each other. So you can lose 3 or 4 spots just in a blink of an eye, just with a slowdown penalty.
More replays coming our way, and this will be how Luke Rosella ended up with that penalty. That one there is fine on the left-hand side. It's these next right-hand side ones, and he would have crested the curb on the left. That's too much. Ooh. That is cutting that too much. Just turned in, and it's not much. It's a fraction of a second to it. Actually, it might have been on the way out. He cut that curb quite aggressively on the way out.
That's painful, isn't it? He busted so hard to get those jobs done, and then just that slight little bit of an off track there, and that's unfortunately going to give him that slowdown penalty, but he'll bounce back. Still plenty of time to get the job done, but yeah, it always hurts when you've got a couple of cars that are nice and close.
Supercars in real life has curb strikes. We here on iRacing, we have what's known as a slowdown penalty. Use too much of the runoff area that's not designed to be used. Use it for, shall we say, the safety margins around the edge of the track. That's what will net your slowdown penalty. Different for different corners around the circuit, different for different tracks around the circuit. Le Mans is one of the ones that really, really punishes you as you come onto the long, long back straights. Jake Burton, first car that's going to dive to the lane. Remember, had a penalty with his first pit stop. This may be a relatively short one this time for Jake Burton, and hopefully this will be to try and grab him some spots back as he looks to go the undercut route. Driver that's sort of lurking quietly. Well, I mean, he hasn't really had a quiet night at the office as Matthew Bowler. He's featured in a number of replays thus far, but you'd have to say, for Matt Bowler, this is a reasonable night at the office there, man.
Absolutely. When he finds himself, I think he'll look back on this and still be pretty happy with it. At the end of the day, like you said, so at the moment he's P16. He's still got a little bit of competition around him. So that opportunity to make up a couple of more spots, you'll definitely take that for round number 1.
He's surrounded by green cars, though. I reckon he'll be seeing green in his nightmares at the end of tonight. As gets the power down, Luke Rosella ahead, got back by, and Hayden Veld is the guy in the rear view mirror. I tell you what, up at the front end of town, it's only white cars as far as the eye can see. Until you get back to Ethan Greek-Galt in terms of things. And boys, Forzen El Nabi's now rapping on that door of Ethan Greek-Galt, so I don't think Greek-Galt's going to wait too much longer to get to that lane. He'll need every little bit of margin in the final stint of the race to see if he can punch clear. And for Forzen El Nabi, Nabi's starting to have a few dramas as we currently stand.
Oh, no.
Could be internet related, could be PC related, could be temperature related, as he gets his way down into Sunset. But in terms of things, Lockie, I think was it Forzen who had a longer pit stop? What's the go between these guys?
So Forzen El Nabi had a slightly shorter first pit stop, so he expects that he'll have to stay stationary for a bit longer in the second round of pit stops. But nevertheless, it's still been an exceptional performance from Forzen El Nabi. He is by far and away the highest place of the rookies in the field at the moment, and you wouldn't know that he was a rookie based on how comfortably he's mixed it with the established front runners tonight.
I think the big asterisk that gets placed on that one is Logitech Pro Invitational rookie. Experienced driver in terms of the supercars within Australia. So even though he's a rookie in the field, well, he might be competing for Rookie of the Year as we stand in terms of this field. And the driver never complains about a bit of trophy to take away.
Yeah, we touched on... Sorry, with that gap with Greek-Galt, I'd love to see him pit this time round, because what he wants to do is get in, get that pit stop done, get those fresh tyres, push on. What he'd like to see is these three start maybe battling it out, tripping over each other a little bit, because them doing that will slowly bring him back into the fold. So
hang on,
I'd like to see
boys.
that.
Hang on, boys. First safety car of the season. Sebring is going to give us an accident that is capable of bringing us a safety car. There was a lot of discussion on the radio. I was just listening in over the last couple of minutes, and it's the Logs Esports car, Luke Rosella. He was having a good night. He was just putting everything he needed to do. He was representing the sponsors handsomely. Clean overtaking maneuvers, was looking strong. And the first safety car of the season for the 55 car, good night at the office, goes to disaster.
Wow, and so close to the end too, but yeah, heartbreak for Rosella. Wonder if that's engine damage. The car looks fairly straight, so I just wonder what's gone wrong for him there. It sounds like that he possibly had a motor let go. Was it on a downshift? Kind of looks like that might be the case here.
This is the entrance to the last corner.
Oh, there it goes.
All over those bumps, yeah. So on the downshift, you got to be aggressive. That's the line that you play with, isn't it? In terms of things, you've got to be aggressive with your downshifts. You've got to use the engine braking, and sometimes you push that line too far. And I can guarantee you, every driver in the field has done that at some point. It's just a matter of when.
Now, you remember when I touched on the fact that Phil Sell would love a safety car to be right in the mix of this? Well, guess what? We've got it.
Well, this will change the fuel numbers just a little bit as well, because we will halve effectively, I think, that fuel number. So it was about 4.5 litres a lap, Lockie? I think, 2.1 or so litres a lap under safety car?
Well, here we go. The leaders have completed their stops, and yeah, obviously you do save fuel under the safety car, but everybody will fuel themselves up to get to the end. And Brady Myers has beaten James Scott off pit road. So they've come out pretty much in the same order that they came in. So Myers at the head of the queue ahead of Scott, and Madison Down remains in position 3.
I tell you what, they may have aggressively gone with the fuel just to get that nose out in front. Just the numbers that I'm looking at this point in time. And Forzin Nabi's had an extremely quick stop through the pit lane. He is going to jump Ethan Greek Gold. So I reckon we're going to have a fuel saver from a couple cars in the final stanza of this race here, Sandman. They'll be hoping that this safety car runs for a reasonably extended period of time. Look at the games already playing. They're not racing up to the back end of the safety car. They are preserving tyre integrity. They're preserving fuel margins. They're preserving everything. Everything at this point in time is about this final stanza of the race. If you burn it catching up to a safety car queue, you're not going to have it to fight with.
Yeah, best thing that a lot of you see these guys will do, will clutch it. They'll even turn the motor off there, just save them what they can. So, man, we weren't expecting this. It's going to get very spicy for these last few laps as we ride on board. Listen how quiet it is.
Did you hear a pin drop out there?
There we go. He clutched it. So, yeah, it's for these guys, it's all about saving fuel.
In terms of things, I'm just sort of keeping half an eye. What's happened to Phil Sell? He's dropped back just a little bit. No, he has popped back out in 7th spot. Sorry, my apologies. Timing I was looking at for a moment there wasn't telling the true picture. So Phil Sell sits 7th in terms of things. This represents an opportunity now for him to see if he can scamper into that podium position. Brady Myers is going to lead the way. And don't forget, he won this race last year. Could he go 2 in a row? Well, that's a question to be answered as well. Forzin Nabi. Have a look at that in P4. But, Lockie, I get there's a question mark over fuel numbers on a couple of these cars.
There are, but you would think that people would have, yeah, I mean, some of them might be cutting it a bit fine, but they'll be hoping that the laps under the safety car will be enough for them to save enough fuel to be able to get home without any issues. And wasn't it, just to clarify, it was Madison Down who won last year, was it not?
My apologies. Yeah, look, you do all this planning, you do all this preparation.
We'll forgive you for that one. It is the first round of the year.
Okay, so we'll get one.
Brady Myers was 2nd, and James Scott was 3rd. That was your podium at this event last year.
So good to see that you're on the stats. I might have to give that away the way that this is going. Anyway, in the meantime, your queue as it currently stands. Brady Myers from James Scott from Madison Down. Forzin Nabi, Greek Galt, Griffin Gardner, Jared, Phil Sells your top 7. We throw back to Richard Hampstead in 8th, Josh Anderson in 9th, and Jake Burton makes up your top 10. So opportunities for a couple drivers who've not had great nights here in terms of things. A little bit further down, it'll be interesting to see whether or not Matthew Bowler can stay attached to some of the cars ahead of him, maybe pick off a few. We're going to get a sprint race to the end here, maybe with 10 to go.
Oh, and that's a recipe for, mate, anything can go wrong. When you were going through that top 10, you touched on Jake Burton. He obviously hasn't had the best of nights. He's bounced back from that penalty. I touched on that he did need a safety car to make things a little bit interesting, and to bring himself into the top 10 now at this stage of the night, I think he'd be pretty happy considering the way his night has played out with that penalty.
Man, look at Rook Rosella. He's just sat there on the side of the road, just a little bit frustrated. Nothing he can really do, and he's got to watch everyone else trundle down. He's got to look at his championship just fall by the wayside in terms of where things start. So, not the first box that he wanted to tick, and we just had confirmation. Safety car lights out at the end of this lap. We will go back green flag racing with 10 to go, boys. Lockie, I'll throw to you first. Now that we're inside this top 10, now the field's being condensed. Have you got anyone inside the top 10? You talked about Phil Sell and the margins that he's gained here tonight. Is it Phil Sell you're picking?
I still think the track position's probably going to be a bit more critical now for him. I mean, obviously he blazed through the field very quickly at the start, but it becomes progressively harder and harder to work your way forward the further forward you go. So I think if they can get into the top 5 from here, that would be pretty impressive. I think that it's realistically it's going to come down to a battle between the top 3.
And across to you, Sandman. Forza El Nabi gets his first shot. He was 6 seconds behind these guys under that last green flag segment. Now he's attached to them. Reckon he has a crack at taking that one by the hands?
Oh, absolutely. He's going to throw everything at it, but so will Greg Galt. But for me, I don't know if I can go past Madison down. He's had good pace all night. But the thing that he's got to worry about is that his teammate Brady Myers has got that clear air, so he doesn't have to worry about battling anyone. He can just be eyes forward. He'll think about the start, try to get the best start he can, and just get that pressure off his back tail a little bit. But for me, I don't know. I'm going to put my money on down.
I reckon I'm going to put my money on the 22, the driver leading the field at this point in time. It's not going to be an easy spot to defend it from. Safety car's just pulled away from the field, so they will get back to pit lane, and then the drivers will be released in the last sector of that potentially. Might wait all the way up until the start-finish straight before they get back to green flag racing, but he's been the bridesmaid for a long, long period of time. He's an absolute beast behind the wheels, the driver, Brady Myers. Is this 2024 season where he finally gets to put his big old stamp of authority on a championship? The last 2 years, you win this race, you win the championship. At the moment, with 10 to go, 60 kilometres to sign, seal and deliver race 1 of the championship leads the way. Let's cast our eyes a little bit further back outside that top 10. Matthew Bowler in 17th will want a few spots. Dylan Rudd's been banged and barged and had a lot of contact thrown his way. Keep your eyes out for them. Bo Albert, think about how bad this is for him. Outside, 44th. He'll be looking to try and finish things off, maybe pick off that Luke Rosella position. Any final comments before we go back to racing? I'll start with you, Lockie.
Notice that Forza El Navi's car is still glitching occasionally, so hopefully there's no connection issue that's going to rob him of a strong run to the flag.
And Sandman, gee, you love that number 1 car, don't you?
I do, but I want to see James Scott right on the back of Myers. I want to see him second guess when Myers is going to go for that start. So if he can just get his nose right to the back of that, that's exactly what I want to see. I just want to see him put that pressure back on Myers, was what Scott was receiving earlier.
Righto, safety cars in the pit lane. 60 kilometres to decide the winner of the first race of the season. It's 12 rounds will be the journey. Who is going to grab this one with both hands and hoist the race win trophy for the first round of the season? Gets a good getaway. Myers will dip and dive away down on the run to turn number 1. Crawling all over the rear bumper is Madison down, and have a look at them using every inch of road available to them. 60 kilometres, well, they might not take 5 of those to get underway in terms of the racing action. Already diving to the inside on the run down to there. Was that Maloney? I think that might have been dived to the inside at turn number 1. Looking to defend things outside the 20. He'll want to finish his first night of the year inside that top 20. We'll see if he can get away, and have a look at how close Madison down is as they exit off of turn number 5. Then it's the run through Big Ben under the Alan J Bridge. The run down to the turn number 7 hairpin. This will be the first real opportunity for any of these guys at the front to get a job done. El Nabi's not quite attached to the rear bumper of Madison down as it stands, and he had to cover was James Scott. Had to get to the inside, and nearly was there a Forza El Nabi size hole on the rear wing of Madison down.
How was the gap? He closed that margin up big time in the breaks, but at the end of the day, there wasn't enough pressure there to put on Down. Down's very focused on. He's got James Scott in front of him, but these guys aren't giving an inch back here too. They know that they're running out of laps. Phil Sell now starting to push on. This thing, 9 laps to go now for these guys, and what an incredible charge for Phil Sell through the field.
Yeah, he's already picked off Griffin Gardner at the start end of this lap, so it didn't take him long to tick that box. Now he's going to crawl right up on the rear bumper of the driver of the 7 car. It's Ethan Griegold. Might drive Hyundai Excels in real life, but right now getting harassed by Jared Philsell in a V8 supercar in the simulated world. The run down to the change of corners here that leads us onto the back straight. The kink, Le Mans, back to the right-hand side. Well, they've already ticked off about, 4.5 kilometres at this point, so almost 55 Ks left to go. We're running out of time, heading into that final 50 kilometres of the racing night. Who is going to stand it up? James Scott gets a huge draft, gets an opportunity, doesn't quite get there. He's going to have to wait one more time. Look at how close Down is though, Sandman.
Oh, I love it. Love the action that we're seeing up front. And you know what? What James Scott did, exactly what I love seeing drivers do, is move around in that rear view mirror. Get the driver in front, making sure he's looking behind, because you want to put that pressure on him. If he's got their eyes looking back to see the pressure from behind, he's not focusing forward. So I love that he moved around, even though he wasn't going to make that attempt on a move.
Yeah, Phil Sell sets fastest lap of the race as he picked off Griffin Gardner that time by, and it looks like maybe a fraction more downforce on the Trans-Tasman racing cars. They're quick here. They've been quick. 2 cars inside the top 5 both of the years thus far. Right now, they've got 2 cars on the podium, same as it was last year. Let's see if they can make it a 1-2 finish as it was last year, because right now, James Scott quick in a straight line. Covers again. Feels that rear view mirror. Had to cover the inside with Brady Myers. There was contact in behind. Might have been Greek Gold into El Nabi, and here comes Phil Sell, so don't count him out just yet either.
Mate, that nose-to-tail action into the braking zone, that was really cool to watch. They know that the laps are ticking away. They can see the drivers coming from behind. So much pressure between them run. They know that they've had a good race, so they don't want to throw away a decent result. But when you know that chance of a win or a podium is right in front of you, you're definitely going to take it on.
I'll get to Le Mans this time. That corner onto the back straight, and it'll be 50 kilometres left out of 250. 1/5 of the race distance left to run. Brady Myers leads the way, but you get the feeling in the back of your mind. He looks antsy. He might look a touch nervous. He's done this 1,000,001 times before, but now the afterburners get lit. The pressure gets lit up, and it's nearly like a chemistry class in high school. Somebody's going to apply that Bunsen burner to his rear bumper.
The one thing I do feel for is Ethan Griegold. It is a little bit distracting when you see obviously Forzan's having those issues. You can see, look at the front too. That little bit of a run there for Myers. James Scott is having a look around the outside. Now he's thinking about a move to the inside. Little bit of nose to tail. That's Braille for, we're running out of laps. I want to win this race. So not leveling up and giving up an inch, but I was touching on the distractions that Ethan would be seeing. It's never great when you see a driver sort of flicking around, but at the end of the day, he's going to try and get that job done on him, and then he can focus on the top 3 up front.
Think about Phil Sell now. He gets a little bit closer. He's now within spitting distance, nearly touching distance of Griegold. So the pressure gets turned up to 11. The dials all get wound back. If you've got something left in the tank, well, you've got another 50 Ks to deal with it at this point in time, but it's going to become 40, it's going to become 30. You're going to run out of road very, very quickly. So if you've got something in the tank, for Phil Self, he wants to get to that lead pack. He's got to go, and it's got to nearly be right now. Here comes Greek Gold. Greek Gold gets to the inside. Here comes El Nabi. Covered it. They both pinch brakes. They both lock up. There's contact at the front as well. Scott's down the inside, and James Scott's led the bulk of this motor race. Now he's going to lead it again.
Yeah, Myers has lost another spot to his teammate in Madison Down, so a little bit of a drama there. He's given up that position, unfortunately, with 7 laps to go. That's not ideal, but the pressure's on it. Look at that. You can see back further there, Jared Philsell trying to get the job done too. It's all heating up here with 7 laps to go.
He's side by side with Forza and El Nabi. Now he's going to single file it back out. El Nabi's gone. El Nabi's been ejected out the other side. There's nothing left for Forza and El Nabi. Rookie night of the season as he returns to the series. Nearly gets back on the track, but won't. Now it's one step further forward for Jared Philsell. It's up inside the top 5 from the back of the grid, Sandman. From the very last row, this man has put his mark on everyone. He's got to the inside. He's made passes, and right now is when he's going to make them count.
Yeah, don't write him off yet. Now he's got that clear bit of track. You know, we touched on that distraction with Forza Alnabi. Unfortunately, just the internet just caught him out a little bit, some dramas there. But now he's got that clear bit of space. He'll be looking forward to see what Greg Gold can do. Unfortunately, Brady Myers has had that drama. He's now starting to just hold on to that position. I don't know if he's got much in the tank as far as taking on James Scott and Madison down. We go to a replay down at the underneath. Was there nose-to-tail contact? Was it a whoopsie? Oh, it looked like a little bit of a chain reaction from all three of the drivers, actually.
Yeah, they all looked like they were into the back of each other, so it was good to see them all get out the other side. Everyone changes positions in this one. There was a pinch break as they got down into sunset that last time by, and I think it might have been Myers because Greek Galt's now just a couple yards closer to him as they get to the turn 5 corner that gets us onto this back straight. Now they'll wind every little bit of horsepower that's available to these V8 supercars. It might be the last season that these guys entertain this generation of race car, and right now they're entertaining all of us because block to the inside, block to the outside. That is a very, very wide 088 James Scott Commodore at this point in time, and Madison Down is just trying to find out if there's a room left on the outside to get by.
Yes, ticks get away as the laps start to tick away. You can see back there. Oh, look at it. Phil Sell. He's going to get the job done. That's one more position. And I was just going to touch on the fact with James Scott, his teammate, leading this. Does he try and hold him up just a fraction? He doesn't want to jeopardise his race and lose position. But if he can just slow this field up a little bit, that really starts to put the pressure on TTR now that Phil Sell is in 4th.
Yeah, and it's going to be 2v2 now. The two TTR cars, they're in a Lobs Esports sandwich. They're going to see green. They're going to see black coming at them. And for Madison Down right now, he's looking at his windshield a little bit wide at the right-hander. Back to the left-hand side of things. Needs a good exit right here. Myers was very, very accurate when they got down there. Did not get the power down to the floor. Now we're running out of laps. There's going to be 5 and a fraction left to go. You know what that means? It's 30 kilometres left when they get back to the start-finish line this time by. Can James Scott hang on to this one for another 30 clicks?
We thought we saw an absolute pearler that no one was ever going to top the results of our first time that we hit Sebring in this series. But this is shaping up to be an absolute cracker. This top 4, it's set up to be one of the ultimate finishes. You can see down the amount of pressure that he's putting onto the back of James Scott. You know Jared Filzell's keen to get the last on the grid. What do you think what that'd be?
Well, I spoke to a bunch of these drivers after Road Atlanta last year, and they said it's so critical to keep the heat out of these tyres. They were talking about the numbers. They were looking at data and sort of just relaying numbers back to me about what you can do in terms of hurting these tyres. And I've just seen the TTR guys put a little bit of extra heat in a couple times already. Again, covers it to the inside from James Scott. Goes back to the outside. So we covered him down to the inside. Madison Down is right there. Do you remember Bathurst last year? Sandman. It was the 3 of these guys. It was Myers, it was Down, and it was James Scott that all went toe-to-toe for what was like a 40-minute sprint race. This has got elements of that already from round 1.
Man, I don't know where to watch. The battle for first and second or third and fourth. It is incredible. We got some of the best sim racers in Australia taking on the Logitech G Supercars Pro Invitational. We're in the dying laps of this race. This is only round 1 for 2024.
And there was a little bit of an element of an endurance race in the first stanza of this one, the first 2/3. Well, it's a sprint race. They might split this round into 2 different halves, if you will. One of them's just so much shorter. And now Myers not quite able to stay attached. He is looking backwards more than he's looking forwards. He's got to cover Jared Filsell because if he wants to end up on the podium, he's just got to. Doesn't have a choice. One more time they come out of Le Mans and get the run down to the backside of the course, and James Scott already covering to the inside. He is breaking that draft, and I think he has to because here comes Down, Sandman. He gets to the outside. Down's going to have a crack at him in the last corner. They walk side by side on the way in. Opportunity for a crisscross. Gets the power down. Whips it around. Runs into the fence. They're all on the fence. Are you kidding me? Green Gold leads this race from Griffin Gardner, and that was never in the script for anyone up and down the field.
One of the worst places license for an accident to happen on that last turn because it narrows up big time, carrying so much speed through there. The leaders have taken each other out. Massive contact, huge damage. Everyone needs to push on. Some really, really damaged race cars there, but Ethan Grigg Gold, now our race leader over Griffin Gardner and Richard Hampstead to P3.
There's potential for another safety car. They're stuck on the start-finish line. Greg Galt's got damage. He's got no power. Griffin Gardner goes to the lead. Griffin Gardner's got so much speed right now. Hampstead's through. Safety car's out. Griffin Gardner leads. Griffin Gardner leads. And now he's had hardware troubles. Griffin Gardner's gone for the server. I don't believe it. What has happened? What happened to this motor race?
I said this had the makings of being something unbelievable, and would it top round the first time that we came here for season 1? Absolutely! Who would have picked the drama that we had in the closing stages? Taking out some of the biggest names we've got in our series, so much damage to these cars, and now a safety car. Unbelievable.
I don't know if we're going to get this start back underway. I think they might just finish as they currently stand. Doesn't that have elements of real life to it? Because this is exactly how they finished in real life for the first round of the season. There's a bump there, and that's nearly what's unsettled James Scott right to the outside rear quarters. And my word, it's just, where do you go?
Oh, it's just luck. You're just basically trying to pick a gap. But Madison Down was on the outside there trying to get the job done. And obviously we touched on how crucial is that run around the outside and how close up against the wall they get. But Richard Hampstead's our leader. Unbelievable.
I see 7 or 8 cars that they're done for the day. 7 or 8 cars that are just done out of that one. It happened at the head of the field. And sometimes you just got to watch where you go. I get the feeling we're going to get a couple of opportunities to watch this on board. This is the outside curb cam.
Oh, he was just, the car was wiggling and Down was on the outside. There was nothing he could do. They both just fired into the fence. Unbelievable.
For some of those guys at the tail end of the field, like I said, I was talking to Brady Borden. He just said, I just want to tick off every lap. It just continues going because it's the last 50Ks of this race.
Oh, they're still hitting back there too.
Oh, no. You're going to hate hearing this one. Guess what? Griffin Gardner gets to the lead of this motor race and hardware gets in the way. Drops from the server.
Here we go. Watch this. This will be incredible. We're riding on board with Richard Hampstead. Let's just the picture, tell the story. Oh, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
There was nowhere to go at all.
I'm gobsmacked. Unbelievable. Madison Down still in P3?
We're going to get one lap of racing. We're going to get one lap of racing.
Oh. I'm speechless. Absolutely speechless. The damage that Down's got there, the damage to Ethan Grigg Gold. I think even Hampstead, obviously, he's got a little bit of damage to the nose there, but you think the position he's in now, he's really in the catbird seat. Unbelievable how this race has turned on its head. And for Down to be involved in that incident and still be P3, unbelievable. Here we go, on board with Ethan Grigg Gold. He sees all this happen in front of him. Down, into the fence. Oh, look at that carnage. Unbelievable. How did Down bounce back to get to P3? Incredible.
Well, how did he bounce out? He's never run a race, by the way, Richard Hampstead. Ethan Grigg Galt's never won a race either, but Grigg Galt has got no straight line speed. Hampstead leads this thing. Madison Down hasn't got an engine underneath him. Robert Gibbs, I think, is the first car in this field that has pace. Yeah, he's got a clean car. He's got a clean car as the number 2.
Snag them all.
He will.
Wow. So I'm keen to see what sort of pace Hampstead's got. We know he's got a little bit of damage to the front splitter. How much that's going to hurt him, I don't know. Obviously, we've talked about the damage to Grigg Galt. Madison Down, that car is, that's pancakes at the moment. Yeah, so he is really going to struggle to even hold on to a top 5 here. So, yeah, unbelievable.
So I'm going to do something right here, and I'm going to start covering off a little bit of drama. That there'll probably be discussions about this in the weeks coming. Now, the first word out of a bunch of people's mouth is going to be, why are we restarting this race? And I can tell you the safety car period here is nearly identical in length, and that's what we aim for in sim racing. It's not straight about, you know, how long it takes us to rescue and recover a car as it is in real life. We're sim racing, we're different. That's how it is. This safety car period is identical to the first one.
Yeah,
So
no
take
one wants
that question out.
No one wants to see a race finish on a safety car, do they? Regardless.
Not in the virtual world.
Yeah. But yeah, even
Can I
more
just before we restart, because I know we're about to, but I want to give a big shout out to Jacob O'Reilly, rookie driver, first time competing in this series. He has come from well outside the top 20 up into 8th position.
How good is that? That's incredible.
And key there as well, something the stewards just said to the drivers in sim, overlap after the apex of the last corner. He's gone early, as Richard Ham said. He wants to get as much of a gap as he possibly can. Can't overlap. You cannot overlap until the apex of the last corner, which is why Hampstead went early. You can pass at the start-finish line, but he's got all of this realm to get some margin out, and that is using the good old race brain. They say Van Gisbergen's got one the size of, well, it's absolutely massive in terms of things. Hampstead's got one that's just as big, and here comes Robert Gibbs to the inside. He's never finished on a podium. Top fives, well, they're out and amongst there if you scrabble for some stats, but this is such a huge opportunity for a number of drivers. The 707 cutting through. Freya's got an opportunity on the table. Veld to the inside. He's going to grab some spots, and here comes Dylan Rudd as well. He's now the best placed Lobs Esports driver.
It's incredible. And Greg Gold, Madison Down, they are going to be absolute sitting ducks here, and there's not a thing they can do about it. Unbelievable, the change of this race. You can see Down, he's just to the inside. Everyone's just literally driving around him like he's standing still.
In the meantime, though, Richard Hampstead, he sits about 11, it's less than that. It'll be about 8 kilometres away from his first ever win in the Logitech Pro Invitational. Can he sign, seal and deliver it? Robbie Gibbs has got a really good race car underneath him. He's got to do everything he possibly can. Freya's on the podium. If he can hold off Hayden Veld. Veld is still looking backwards as well. There's a number of drivers still trying to scrap their way through. O'Reilly's bowled a wide.
You put the commentator's curse on him there. Unfortunately, he's fired off. He's lost a couple of positions there. Still in the thick of it, and a chance to make up positions because obviously we can see some cars struggling.
Yeah, and have a thought for Dylan Rudd. He's been battered around the ears most of this raid. O'Reilly's on the radio immediately to the stewards. He wants that one looked at, whether there was contact when they got down there. It might have been Dylan Rudd that he was scrapping away with. Job Stewart's back inside the top 10. Matthew Butler, he's saying, yeah, 16th. He's about that earlier on. Inside the top 10. He gets to 8th. Who's moving their way through the field? Down's back to 5th. He's still not got a great race car underneath him, but he's going to scrap for points. When we look back at the tail end of the field, could a 5th place, could a 6th place, could a top 10 in round number 1 be the sign of a champion? Well, for Richard Hampstead, they say you win this race at the start of the season, you win the championship. He's got 6 kilometres to go, but the margin's not great, and that is the margin that he's got to work with, ladies and gentlemen. 2 seconds. Can he hang on to it? The car looks okay. He might just be okay.
How's the nerves for Robert Gibbs staring down a podium, but obviously a chance at a race win. I think Hampstead may have enough to hold on, but what a chain of events here. He'd be looking forward to see that the position that he's in on the last lap. He'd be checking his mirror, though, because he can see Tom Freya there. Hayden Veld right in the thick of it too, but man, oh man, the way this race has changed out. The gap between Gibbs and Hampstead, 1.8 seconds.
Well, how's this for luck? Some of them will sit back and say there is no such thing as luck, but when opportunity presents, you've got to put yourself in the right spot. And there was a few drivers that did. For Richard Hampstead, he got so lucky. He put himself in the right spots. He really gave himself every opportunity to get through that wreck, a nasty wreck at the tail end of things. And now he's halfway home on this final lap of the motor race. How far are the damaged cars going to fall through the field? Where's Greg Galt? Drops to 15th at this point in time. Madison Down holds a spot inside the top 10. Dylan Rudd is defending for all his money at this point in time. The trading of paint's not done. It's 3 kilometres left on this racetrack. It's 3 kilometres on a drama-induced night, and it's still not over.
It's incredible. These guys are not giving an inch. They know there's only under half a lap to go for these drivers, trying to hold on for a potential best result ever for some of these drivers. Incredible stuff as we make our way in the last couple of corners. It looks like Hampstead's got enough to hold on, but how's the battle here between Freer and Veld?
Oh, nearly cops a whack. Phil gets to the rear bumper. This is going to be it. The last spot on the podium. If it's the last lap of the race, you're going to cover it. They expected this as he come off the second last corner. Hayden Veld gets covered to the inside. He's even with Tom Frew. He's alongside the final spot on the podium. They don't swap paint. I don't know how. They were right next to each other. The final turn of the motor race clouts the inside wall. But on the first night of the season, driver of the 28, Richard Hampstead, puts his name in the record books, winning the first round of 2024 Logitech Pro Invitational. Robbie Gibbs home second, Tom Freer third, and my word, if the steward's got a long night to deal with.
Oh, what an incredible opening round for 2024. Congratulations, Richard Hampstead. Welcome to Victory Lane. Look at him soaking it up. Unbelievable. Huge shout out to Robert Gibbs, Tom Freer in third. That was a cracker.
Well, we said TTR was going to be tough to beat, but I don't think anyone said Richard Hampstead. I guarantee you if there was people betting out there, someone would have thrown a few bucks at Richard Hampstead. They'd be hundreds of dollars richer right now. Oh, man, I can't wait to chat to him. I can't wait to chat to him.
So how's this for a stat, guys? Out of our 3 podium finishes, only one of them started in the top 10 on the grid. That was Richard Hampstead, came from 9th. Robert Gibbs, 17th to 2nd. Tom Free, 18th on the grid to 3rd.
Burn it up, Hammer. Enjoy every second of it. Well done. And Hammer, yes, he was lucky with that accident, but he was there or thereabouts all night. We touched on that he was sort of sneaking around just outside of the top 5. He had that little bit of clear air. He had some strategy go his way. He had some pace, but man, oh man, he had some luck getting through that incident too. So well done, Richard Hampstead. That was huge.
And he's a popular driver too. There aren't many people who don't like Richard Hampstead, so this will be one that a few drivers will sit back and go, yeah, look, it was a little bit lucky, but man, it is so good to see him that far up. He's the only driver, by the way, on the podium to have ever finished on the podium in this series. So we have got 2 new drivers that have never, ever finished on their podium in Robbie Gibbs and Tom Freer. My word, what a night. Well, that one's going to go down in history, that's for sure. I don't know if it'll be for one reason or another, but there's a ton of them to take from that one.
And I know that we were singing the praises of Jared Filsell, and it looks like he was on target to take out the Hard Charger award, but obviously getting caught up in that contretemps so close to home has robbed him of that. And in the end, the driver who made up the most positions this evening, Kurt Stenberg, who came from 40th on the grid up to 11th.
Wow.
Let's go through your top 10 just so we can sort of chalk these up and embrace this moment just a little bit as we're celebrating his achievements right now for Stenny. And Richard Hampstead, your winner from Robbie Gibbs from Tom Freer. Hayden Veld just narrowly misses out, clouded the barrier at the turn into the last corner. Didn't really have an opportunity to turn it back and see if he could get the drive to the line over Tom Freer. Job Stewart gets home in 5th. Matthew Bowler in 6th. We said he'd have a nice night at the office inside the top 15. Just barely misses out in the top 5. And I tell you what, 500ths of a second in that one as well. So that's how close he was to a top 5. Dylan Rudd 7th. Rick Kuznetsov 8th. Madison Down hangs on to a top 10 in 9th. And Sean McNamara gets home in 10th.
I'll tell you what, in the context of this championship, those points that Madison Down has collected by finishing in the top 10 with many of his key rivals down and out, they could prove absolutely critical come the end of the season.
I tell you what, in terms of the stats, I'm just looking at the moment, has the most top 10s on record, so that will stay his and his alone. Has the most top 5s on record, has the most podiums on record, doesn't have the most race wins, but he'll keep all of the key stats alive. We look further down the order as well. Johnson home in 21st, Andrew Gilliam. Scott Gamble, remember, he got turned on lap number 1. That's actually about where he started. I think he started out at 24th. So in terms of that, yeah, there's points on the board there for him. Connor Nixon home, another rookie in 24th of Million Sim Sports. Ethan Grigol falls to 25th after being inside that top 5. Zach Rattray White, 26th. O'Shea, Flock, Ross, and Brady Baldwin home in 30th. then we'll throw it over the page. Brian, but Forza El Nabi, man, you gotta feel bad for him as well with those internet issues late. Adam Briggs, Griffin Gardner drops from the server. He would have led the restart and had a clean car, by the way, so unlucky for him. Myers was a DNFer, 2 laps down, will, I think, score points potentially in terms of things we've got to check on that stat as well. Wayne Burke, Jake Burton, James Scott, Josh Anderson, Bo Albert home in 40th place, could have potentially snuck through and picked up a boatload more points, so 4 laps down, not necessarily the greatest thing for him. Then outside the top 40, because we've got more than 40 cars this season, by the way, as well, is just more DNFs in terms of things. So Phil Sell, Rivera, Rosella, Andre Youssef, and that rounds us out in terms of things. So 44 cars took the grid tonight. There was 1 not in attendance who couldn't necessarily make things. Boy, my blood has finally cooled off just a fraction, but there'll be some mad drivers, I think, here tonight, boys.
An incredible finish. And yeah, we talk about before our last safety car. If you had to read out that top 3 or top 5, there's no way no one would have believed you. Now we're checking out the last lap action here back in the field. No one giving an inch. A little bit of side-by-side action. Still a little bit of bump and grind. Oh, do you see the cars wiggle just as they're trying to get the power down too? Unbelievable. Great little run to the flag. But what a race. Sebring never lets us down, does it? It's a cracker of a race to be our opening round.
Oh, my word. Well, it's established itself as the first round of the season, and after tonight, I don't think it's going away anytime soon in terms of things. We're going to have podium and interviews coming your way in just a few moments, because I think at the moment the drivers are still trying to settle down. I get the feeling Richard Hampstead is still celebrating like a madman, so we might just cut to a break and see if we can grab a couple guys just for a few moments so we can get an opportunity to chat to them. So, guys, we'll be back with you in about 30 or 40 seconds or so as we grab our drivers to chat to. Talk to you soon.
Weekend in, weekend out, Motorsport Australia officials are making waves. From waving flags, waving cars through pit lane, or responding to a wave for help. Wave hello to new lifelong friends. Who knows, you might just make waves around the world. Ride the first wave. Search Motorsport Australia officials today.
Well, after an insane opening round of the 2024 Logitech G Pro Invitational A-Series, it's now time for the podium presentation, and in third place tonight for Synergy Sim Racing, his maiden podium finish this evening, Tom Freer. Tom, wow, boy did you have to work for it tonight. You came through from 18th position on the grid, dodged the carnage that we had 5 laps from home, and then you had to fend off Hayden Veld on that last lap. Talk us through your race.
Yeah, I don't really know where to begin, to be honest. We actually had a fast car today. It's just, I made a meal of qualifying and found myself back in the pack, and once you're there, it's very hard to move forward. But yeah, everything just sort of fell into our lap, and luckily I had teammates around me as well, which, you know, made the stress a lot easier, and yeah, somehow we survived the big one, and we're on a podium. I honestly can't believe it, to be honest.
With that big crash that happened, did you have any indication that that was about to unfold in front of you, and were you able to position yourself accordingly to be able to dodge all of the carnage?
I was actually pretty aware that something could happen with about 8 or 9 laps to go. Obviously, there's a bit of history between TTR and those Lobs boys, so we were always preparing for the worst to happen, and tonight it did, and I was ready for it, but at the same time wasn't. I didn't expect it to happen there. I honestly thought it would happen at the hairpin or in the middle of the circuit, but yeah, we just saw everything happen in front of us and picked the gap, and that gap closed when Jared spun in front of us, and yeah, somehow we got through with little to no damage.
And how are those last couple of laps having to fight off Hayden Veld for that final spot on the podium?
It wasn't fun, because I've had conversations with Jordan this week about, you know, sort of jokingly, yep, we're going to get a podium this year, really thinking, is it possible? Because it's a very new situation for us this year too. But I I knew Hayden was coming pretty quick at the end. I wasn't sure if I had a little bit of quarter damage or something, but I felt like I had no rear grip. So when he got to my rear bar, I just actually used tricks that Jared taught me a few years ago, and yeah, just propped him up on the apex and pretty much said to myself, do not let him get underneath you in any other corners. Always put him to the outside. He'll have no grip, and luckily for us that worked, and yeah, we're able to finish where we did.
I've got Sandman and Scott here as well. I'll throw it open to you boys for some questions for Tom as well.
Mate, I just want to get a feeling on your thoughts on the whole night. Now, it's probably going to take a little bit to process about everything that unfolded. Obviously, you'd be absolutely over the moon, but how were the nerves on that restart, knowing that there was only a couple laps to go?
You know, it wasn't good. There were a lot of nerves. I know this is a very big year for this team. Obviously, we're flying solo again and doing things a little bit differently to what we have been the last few years. We've been very lucky to be provided with high quality setups from Jared and James and stuff like that. So I knew what this would mean to everyone else. And I know Jordan really wanted to see it happen this year too. So to tick that off in the first round and not only do that, but cope with the pressure at the end, I think that puts us in a really great position for the rest of the year.
Mate, I'm thrilled for you. Absolutely stoked to watch. I know you'll go back and enjoy watching this one. Scott, have you got anything for him? What a great race we saw.
Mate, you said podium on the cards at some point in the year. You didn't expect it for round number one. Does that mean the expectations go up? Championship's yours by this point, surely.
I wish I could say that, but unfortunately reality will kick in and we'll come back for round two at Phillip Island. So it's going to be very interesting for us. But yeah, to tick that off obviously is just such a big boost for everyone at SSR. They have worked so hard over the last month or two, like throughout the qualifying series and going into round one. I don't think I've ever been prouder of this team. So we feel good this year, we feel better, and we've come out in round one and ticked off the first goal. So now we got to go searching for new ones.
Mate, the only other question I have for you is how's the mood across the team at the end of that race? Was it just congratulations, buddy? We all rise on your high. We all enjoy that, or was there a little bit of commiserations? You know, what's the attitude so far?
It's pretty mixed. Like I really feel for the likes of Berkey and Jordan, who worked hard all day and just got caught out in this incident. I think Adam Briggs was in it as well. It's not fair on those boys because they have worked so hard. So to walk away from round one with a 0 next to your name, it just adds pressure for the rest of your year. But in saying that, we have the confidence that we can actually put together a good race package, which we had today. And you know, I'm sure those boys will pick their heads up and come back very strong for round two.
Mate, congratulations. Floor's all yours to thank the sponsors that make it possible for both yourself and Synergy Sim Racing, brother.
Thank you. Just a big thank you to Works Racing Components and Wave Runner Performance Centre. They've obviously stayed on board with us this year through all the lows of the end of last year, and we're very lucky to have them on board. Obviously, to all the SSR guys, they deserve a podium at the start of the year. I'm glad I can be the one to bring it to them. And I just really hope this gives us a boost for the rest of the year that's ahead of us. And obviously, thanks to all the admins in the Logitech series, and obviously you guys for doing a great job in the broadcast.
Excellent. Thank you, Tom. Congratulations. We can hear the elation in your voice. Let's move on to another driver who will no doubt be equally elated, coming home in second place from 17th position on the grid for the Evolution Racing team. Let's hear it for Robbie Gibbs.
Thanks, mate.
And Robbie, also excellent job to dodge that carnage late in the race. Talk us through how it played out from your perspective tonight.
Well, I saw a bunch of smoke in front of me and I thought, oh sweet, here comes a few positions, and then remembered that I've still got to get through it first, and didn't really know what I was doing, but I saw a gap so I went for it, and I think I got through it just in time, and I think someone else almost came back and hit me right at the end of it, but no, got through, and not sure what happened to, I think Griffin was leading at the time, but from my perspective, I couldn't have asked for much better really.
Was that, I mean, obviously you had, up until that point, had a reasonable run, but how does this, I suppose, alter your expectations for the rest of the season now that you've finished on the podium in round one?
Doesn't really change anything, to be honest. I think I was sort of changing the mentality a bit from last year, and instead of trying to go gung-ho all the time, actually calm down a bit and think about what I'm doing more. So, I mean, that's what I did tonight. Raced pretty sensibly all race and got pretty lucky at the end there, but was there when it counted.
Sandman and Scott are here in the commentary box as well. I'll throw the floor open to them for some questions.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the same question that I had for Tom, mate. At the nerves, obviously you've got a restart to think about. There's only sort of like a 2-lap dash and there's plenty of wounded cars around you. It was a good opportunity to make those spots, but you held your own towards the end there. It looked really good.
Yeah, I was saying to Richard just before that he almost caught me out with his restart because I was ready to go. No, that was. I didn't realise. Unfortunate for Ethan and Mads to have that happen. But when I saw how down on straight line they were, I was like dollar signs in my eyes. I took it and and then I think Tom must have gotten a little bit of damage from the wreck as well. But yeah, I mean I was probably a bit shaky on that first lap after the restart, which made a few mistakes and sort of ruined any chance I may possibly have had to get to Richard, but he did a good job as well.
And no doubt, it goes without saying, you'd be doing absolute backflips about tonight's result. One for the ages to look back on, but a good race by you. Kept the car pretty clean, and to get through that incident, man, that's heart and mouth stuff when all that starts to unfold in front of you, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been on the wrong side of those too many times where the car appears in front of you out of nowhere. But I didn't want to come to a complete stop because that probably would have been just as bad. But I saw a bit of a gap open and put my foot down and got through it. And when you come out the other side and you see your name as it's P10 or whatever, but it's up around P1, 2 and 3, you're like, wow, I must be in a good spot.
Stoked for you, mate. And Scott, have you got anything for Robbie?
Yeah, I was just going to say, just quickly, mate, it takes years of experience to build up wreck avoidance like that, man. It was everything you had to. So obviously, there is luck involved, there's timing involved, but you've also got to give yourself. It's so easy to just pick up the throttle and plow in there in the hopes that you're driving for the biggest gap, get through it as quickly as possible. You went with the alternate approach, jumped on the anchors, mate. What was going through your head?
Not much really, because I mean I saw the smoke and thought it might have just been a little bit of a bingle or something, and next thing you know there's 3 or 4 cars rotating across the track and you're sort of like, wow, well, what am I going to do? And I mean I knew that I had Tom behind me, and he's probably a bit the same, a bit more sensible. Didn't realise there was a gap to Jordan behind that, so I probably could have been even a bit more careful, but I've just backed it up a bit, and I mean when the cars are spinning like that and the guys in front of you are still crashing into them, I mean you can only slow down and sort of wait to see if there is a gap, and at least come out of it with a clean car.
Mate, floor's all yours. Congratulations. This is going to be a celebration of the ages, mate. Go off and enjoy it, but first, before you get there, thank the sponsors that make it possible for you and Evolution Racing Team.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to thank Logitech for all their support, not just for the series, but for us as a team. Want to thank the guys at Evolution Racing Team as well. Worked really hard on the setup this week, and I think it really showed that it paid off for us. Like I said, unlucky for Ethan, and that's no good. But Maddie and Hayden did really well. I'm probably missing someone else, but that's right. And I mean, thanks to you guys and SimSpeed and everyone for putting it on and making it really a professional sort of series that we got here.
Good job, Robbie. Congratulations, mate. There he is, our runner-up tonight, Robbie Gibbs. And breaking through for his first round win in the Logitech G Pro Invitational E-Series, it's time to welcome in the man of the moment for Trans-Tasman Racing, Richard Hampstead, who has chalked up his first win tonight, but the 7th in this series for the Trans-Tasman Racing squad. Just talk to us, Richard, about the emotions that you must be feeling at the moment, because you've been a consistent front runner in this series ever since it started. How does it feel to finally break through for your maiden victory?
Yeah, thanks, Lockie. It is a mix of emotions. Obviously, happy with the result. Anytime you get a win, you've got to be happy and take it no matter what the circumstances are that lead you to it. I felt I actually drove pretty well during the race. I'm not going to try to claim like I was the quickest car or even in the top 5 really. I think I was 7th or 8th before the crash and probably deserved to finish there. But in this field, that's still a result of pretty strong driving. And then obviously the crash. It's probably going to go down in history as one of the biggest crashes we've seen in all of the iRacing Supercar series since they began, 13, 14 years ago. Just an enormous moment. It's really hard when you're in that situation because you've either got 2 choices. One, you can just come to a complete stop and you know that you're going to be taken out by multiple cars behind. It's probably not a great idea. Or you can try to slow down a bit and try to find a gap, which is ultimately the path that I went down. And so just honestly got really, really lucky. I think I actually drove through Jared Filsell's car and just glitched through it, didn't get any damage, so super, super lucky there. And then, unfortunately for Griffin Gardner, who also got through that crash, he dropped out at the hairpin just after the safety car was called. So, I feel pretty bad for him really, because that would have been a pretty cool win on debut in the series as a main driver anyway. So I feel pretty bad for him, but overall, the emotions for me are pretty good. So it was a pretty tough year and a pretty tough qualifying last year, and a pretty tough qualifying series this year as well. So glad to get a very strong result.
Walk us through how you were feeling just before that last safety car race start, where you are a couple of laps away from potentially taking your first victory, but you've still got some super competitive drivers lined up behind you.
So I could see in the mirror that Ethan and Madison's cars were in a very poor state. So, to be honest, I wasn't that concerned about them. I knew they were going to be a long way off the pace. And so my plan on the restart was to go as early as I could, because I just could tell that they were going to hold up the cars behind them. And so that's what I did. I just went early and tried to get as big of a gap over the not damaged cars as I could. And so that worked out pretty well.
I'll throw the floor open to my co-commentators. Firstly to you, Scott.
Yeah, mate. Look, I mean, rain came a week ago. Did you think it'd be raining at Team Hampstead here tonight?
No. I think I facetiously made a comment on the grid that I was going to win the race, but I didn't mean it. So no, absolutely not. Absolutely did not think that it was going to rain Team Hampstead. And ultimately, I'm under no illusions that there was a lot of luck involved as well.
But mate, the other comment I've had is there been any whoops? Has there been any yahoos? Has there been, I've been waiting for that. What was the first reaction?
Oh, it was an internal one. I'm not the type to scream over Discord or anything, but definitely an internal scream of joy. I was pretty happy to cross the line and take that win. Like I said, it's been a pretty rough patch in terms of results for the last 12 last 12 months or so. So good to get the win under the belt.
Mate, huge congratulations, Richard. A long time coming, mate. And I guess it's mixed emotions too, because obviously you come around that last corner, you see that accident happen in front of you, but there's a number of your teammates that are involved in it as well. So I know, it's obviously tricky because so much happens and it's all happens in the blink of an eye. You just, like you said, if you slow down too much, you get nailed from behind, and you just got to try and pick a gap and go through it. But those emotions for you when you see your teammates in it as well, that's tricky.
Yeah, no, exactly right. It's pretty tough when, I think I had 3 or 4 teammates in front of me, and you could just see cars kind of scattered like bowling pins across the track, and that there's a pretty strong chance that you're going to hit at least one of them. I think to be honest, I might have accidentally put Josh Anderson in the fence, so big apologies to him. He deserved a better result there, but it's just so hard because he was trying to figure out his way through the mess, and I was trying to figure out mine, and our paths just kind of crossed. And so I feel pretty bad about that actually, and also feel bad for all those guys who have championship ambitions because, yeah, I know how hard a lot of them work, particularly someone like Brady Myers who's spent hours and hours practicing, and yeah, I feel pretty bad to see his racing like that.
It'll definitely go down to the record books as one of those amazing finishes that we see at Sebring yet again. I want you to enjoy it, mate. Enjoy every minute. But before we let you go, the floor is yours to say your thanks.
Yeah, well, yeah, big thanks to all of the team at Trans-Tasman Racing. Been a lot of good work going to the setup this week. Also, big shout out to all of our sponsors, Virtual Racing School, Card FX, and the many others that I cannot think of right off the top of my head at the moment.
Huge congratulations again, mate. Enjoy this one. And, mate, we're already looking forward to round number 2. Can't wait. And, mate, you're going to that as a championship leader. How good's that?
That's something I wasn't expecting to hear. So, no, that sounds pretty good.
Awesome. Congratulations, mate. Go and enjoy this one.
Cheers.
How good's that, Scott? Lockie, incredible. We're going to check out a bit of a replay. This is the aerial view. We were thinking about how it had looked from the chopper, and you see so much unfold. It's basically down, trying to make the move, and we saw the move that he tried that gutsy one around the outside. Had good pace. Neither driver gave up an inch, and I just wondered about how much movement there was between the cars coming over the bumps. Oh, a little bit of a wiggle, and that's how it all unfolded. Unbelievable view. And then you'll see the cars just picking the gap here. Some of the huge hits that we saw too. The accidents seem to keep on going too, didn't it, boys? Like when we see from other angles that there were just later hits on as well.
And the breaking news, guys, is that Madison Down has actually been penalised 30 seconds post-race by our stewards and by our driving standards observer, Thomas Randall. Now, if you go back a bit in that replay, I think the aspect of that context that the officials are not going to like is that it was Madison Down who made initial contact with the rear of James Scott's car just as they'd got past the apex of that final corner, and that was what unsettled James Scott's car and ultimately carted both of those leading cars into the wall on the outside. So here, look at it again. So fine here, but if we slow it down, it's at this point here, and it's only very light contact, but you can see that it's just enough to unsettle the back of James Scott's car. He loses some momentum. You can see that he's having a micro tank slapper there. And that is what has carted both those cars into the fence on the outside, and obviously from there created the chain reaction.
Yeah, and I there's bits of that I'll sit here and go, yeah, I agree with that. Look, the first contact, absolutely. And the key, remember, we always go back to, in terms of racing room, did he trigger enough overlap? I think this was the 35 car, which was triggered for an unsafe re-entry as well. I'm just saying the stewards are still processing, still digging through. That one is going to be unpacked. I think that one's going to be looked at and reviewed and reviewed and reviewed and reviewed. It's going to be a long night for those stewards sitting behind the office. In terms of things, well, round 1 is in the books, and I'll be coming back, I think, to watch that one again about probably another 20 times. I'll probably save the replay and look at it in sim. I'll listen to the commentary back over and over and over again. Well, it's going to be a few weeks before we get back to do it all again. Round number 2 is going to be journeying back to the Australian side of things, all the way down to the southern side of the nation. Phillip Island Grand Prix Circuit plays host to round number 2 of the Logitech Pro Invitational for 2024, Wednesday, 10th of April, 7:45 p.m. AEST, I believe it'll be, because daylight savings will cease before that one kicks off. So keep your eyes on that one. In the meantime, it's still all kicking off in the background. I can see there's penalties still coming through. Like I said, race control are going to be very, very busy. Final thoughts before we jump away in terms of things, boys. Lockie, I'll start with you.
Yeah, look, I think it opens the championship contest right up, because pretty much all of the drivers that we picked as being our primary title protagonists tonight, Madison Down, James Scott, Jared Filsell, Brady Myers, Ethan Grigault, they have all come out of tonight with very few, or in some cases no points at all. So it has really mixed up the championship picture, that's for sure.
Yeah, what an incident we saw. That was a game changer, but man, the run that we saw from Filsell to come from dead last and be in the contention for a podium or even a win, that was incredible. But then that's heartbreak, isn't it? At the other end, where he walks away with just basically a DNF, but you wouldn't know just what a great drive that he put in for tonight. So definitely something to look forward to as the season goes on for 2024.
Yep, boys, it's going to be unpacked, it's going to be analysed, it's going to be looked at, it's going to be reviewed. Well, if you want to find out what our thoughts are going to be, you're going to have to join us on that 10th of April. I've lost a few decibels out of my voice. That was one of the moments in sim racing. I've never seen anything like it, and I don't think I'll see anything like it again, but in a few weeks' time, you'll get the opportunity to jump back and have a look. It's going to be Richard Hampstead who leads the championship when we turn back to the Australian side of things. Who will lead the championship after Phillip Island in just a few weeks? Ladies and gentlemen, the Logitech Pro Invitational has been our pleasure to bring you the coverage here tonight. See you on the 10th of April to start to unwrap what this championship puzzle looks like a bit deeper.
Weekend in, weekend out, Motorsport Australia officials are making waves.